Well, are we going to get started here this morning?
We are.
Okay. We're kind of switching around the schedule a little bit this morning. We've got Bonnie Lee Witt coming at I think around 10:30. 10:30. She's going to share with us on how to share your faith. Because we have to be careful about that. We are allowed to share our faith, but you can't Bible thump people or anything like that. You can't do that. So there's a discreet way to share your faith. And then after that, we have one of our volunteers, Milo, is going to come and share with us about abuse, different abusive kind of situations. So in the meantime, I guess this morning, we have Harry here, and Marcia, and myself, and Loretta. And we're just going to try to go over things we haven't hit on. And if you have questions or just have a discussion about what do you need to know?
Yes, in all of this, I have, when, let's say someone calls you and do you, see, my immediate response would be to say, I'm sorry you're having these problems. Is that not a correct response?
Not really sure you should say I'm sorry. Sometimes words just lose you, and we don't have any telephone police. So, you use the wrong word, that's okay.
But I mean,
right. I think you might want to say, I hear what you're saying. I understand you're having a lot of problems right
Well,
now.
like I said, it hasn't been mentioned, and that's why I was wondering, I take it that's something you should not do?
Well, not that you should not do it. You can tell somebody that you're sorry, but that doesn't really help them.
No, I would assume that it would help them initially, but like I said, that would be my initial response.
Well, and one of the first responses too is wanting to help. Want to make it better. Want to make it better so bad it hurts, and you can't. And what we really need to do is just keep feeding back. I hear what you're saying. That must be really hard for you. Trying to come up with stuff cold is hard. When you're on the phone, it's easier. Things start to come to you of what you can say. I hear you saying that you're having a lot of pain right now, or I hear you saying that you're really going through a really bad time. Can you share some more of that with me? The main thing to make sure that you hear is that we answer by the second ring, and you say, "This is contact, may I help you?" Those are the most important words we have here. Is this is contact, may I help you? And then once you get into the phone conversation, we don't want to use the word problem. It's another thing we do. Are you having a problem? Or I hear you're having a problem. We have, what is your situation? Did you can. Now, I'm not going to say I don't let the word problem slip out of my mouth, because I know I do. But I try real hard not to, because we want it to be a situation. We want it to be something that's going on in their lives. We want to try to draw them out and get them to tell as much as we can, but we don't want to get more personal than they want us to be, which is really it sounds like a kind of a hard balance, because you can't say, well, who are you? And who is this person you're talking about? And what can I do? We can say, we want to brainstorm with them. That's one of the things we want to do. We want to say, well, how do you feel about that? What have you done about that in the past? We don't want to say, have you been to a psychiatrist? We want to say, what have you tried in the past? We might say, have you thought about seeing a therapist? Is that an option for you? Do you think it might help? Do you have any family members you can call? Do you have any clergy? Do you have a home church? Just different things to keep the conversation going. We also need to be careful. I'm one who needs to fill a gap. I hate dead silence. And there's times when there has to be a dead silence because there is nothing to say. And I've had people say to me when I let the line go silent for a minute, "Are you there?" "Yes, I'm here. I was just waiting to see if you had anything else to say," or whatever. But you just reassure them that yes, you are there. And you'll get to know the caller then. You'll get to know if the caller wants you to keep the conversation going. Because some of them do. Some of them, believe me, they wouldn't even give you a chance to say hello. They just go into their spiel and they get going and they're off and running and you don't really have any time. Anybody else have anything they want to particularly ask or discuss, or something that you read, or?
That's like silence you were talking about, isn't it?
See, and Harry had to fill it, he couldn't take it.
You know, a lot of people don't think this way, but when you ask somebody, well, are you there by yourself? And they're panicky or anything, you can always say, if you hear an animal or something, oh, do you have a pet? And get their mind off of that immediate panic that your pet, related to something that that will take them off their panic, and that they're responsible for, and that they love, a lot of people love those animals.
That's true.
Just as much.
And that's being aware of what you're hearing on the phone.
Correct.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying about asking them if they're alone. That could be a real panic question, and a lot of people are warned not to ever answer that question.
Oh, I understand.
Especially younger people, you tell them, never say you're alone. So, instead of saying, are you alone, is there someone there with you?
That's correct.
Because I had someone call one time, and they sounded a little panicky, but not really over the edge, and I wasn't really sure how to handle it, and so I did say, well, is there anyone else in the home with you right now? Do you have someone there that you can talk to? And I found out that the person's parents lived in the same home, and they were just in another room, and then I felt better. It was okay, well, now we got a person who's not alone in the house, so that's good. Anything particular you want to go over that you can think of?
I got a list.
Okay. Come on up and look at us.
Okay. Module 4 on the syllabus. As y'all might have imagined, things have changed as we've gone along, because we want to see what everybody needs. The questions y'all asked Marge, I think there's going to be a lot of those that come up as you start your phone room shift that you won't even know to ask now. And there's a list of us that you can call even during your shift. Give us a call if there's any questions, because they're going to crop up, and there's no way that you could talk about everything. Well, let's see. Describe to me how you tie your shoe. And I could be here listening to you, and I would never get my shoe tied. So there's a lot of things, talking things out with people can sometimes be more difficult than you would imagine. And believe me, after having to write out simple things that would happen to change in the phone room, it's awfully difficult. If anybody's tried to write a training manual, they'll agree that it's very difficult. I know a lot about what I'm doing. You may or may not know very much about it. So that's what the training is, to kind of get you oriented to know that you don't have to know everything before you do. My favorite story is people will say, well, I've gone through the training. I'll ask them, what's the best thing and what's the worst thing about your training process? And they say, well, the best thing is I learned a lot about the community and the members of the community, and some of the problems that they have. So what's the worst experience? And they say, well, it's when the person comes in and they say, have a good shift, and then they shut the door, and the telephone goes about as big as an elephant, because you don't know what's going to happen with the phone. So that's part of what the phone, hands-on phone training is like. You get to hear some of these calls and how people handle them. You can hang the phone up and talk about that. There's going to be a number of different issues during any number of shifts. You can get in all the calls. We have about 10 call categories with about 4 under each one that would classify the call, whether it's suicide, talking about it, or domestic violence, physical, emotional, basic needs. Is it food? Is it clothing? Is it shelter? Things like that. So we try to keep track of the number of calls and the types of calls that we get. So I'm sure everybody would agree with Marge that there's a lot of open-ended questions that you talk with people about, and you don't try to tell people what they should do. Should, must, why. These are terms that coulda, shoulda, woulda. We're not that kind of an agency. Shoulda, woulda, coulda is something you'll get plenty of from your family, plenty of from your friends. You don't need any more what about you, shoulda, woulda, coulda. The first thing on here, so I want to disarm that problem. There is nobody no one that can walk in the phone and knows everything. There's not PhDs, there's not anybody who knows everything, so let's just kind of drop that as an expectation.
Can I ask a quick question, not to derail the whole conversation, but you were just talking about the call categories. Are we going to get some training in how to differentiate whether a person is depressed, whether they're having family problems, whether it's,
Right.
some of these things can be so either or.
Oh, yeah, it's very much a sand on the beach kind of thing. You could have a depressed person who has a child who can't get shelter, who's being beaten by her husband, who has no water coming out of the tap. So a lot of these issues are going to be multiple call categories. That's one of the things that's sort of frustrating when you hang the phone up to a phone. You look at the notes you and say, well, let me see. They could hit one or two or three of those. And there's really nothing wrong with putting that on the call sheet, that you see there was a depressed person who had a child they couldn't feed, was without shelter. These sort of things, you can break them up. Does anybody in this room have just one problem? Of course not. Y'all wouldn't be here. We wouldn't, actually, our hearts wouldn't be if we just had one problem. So some of the things on here, too, I just wanted to disarm that part of it. That would be disarmed enough. We sort of escalated everybody's skill level and told everybody, here's all the things you need to know. And I'm here to tell you that no one is expected to know all of them every time you get a call. So hopefully you're disarmed and you know this is a learning process. And that's why regular phone room shifts make a huge difference. Because if you've been on the phone and you wait a month until you come back and you have 4 hours, then you've got 8 hours within a 1 month. And sometimes that's not enough to get a wide enough variation of calls under your belt in order to be more confident. Of course, some of the things you may be uncomfortable with when you have a call. That's why we've got a list of people that you can call and say, you know, I had this situation and here's what the person said. How would you classify that? What, you know, we didn't really come out with, wasn't sure that the person came out with the outcome they wanted. There's going to be someone that can help you make that decision. And that's why we've got, what, 8 people? Got 8 people that you can call. And a lot of them are done overnight, a lot of them in the early morning, so it really doesn't matter what time you call. If you let your name get on that shift, we want to talk with you. If somebody's not home or doesn't answer the phone, call the next person. The last thing in the world we want a volunteer to do is to not feel like they have the resources that they need, and that we're not with them 100%, because that would be counter to what we do, and it would not help the community either. So, after disarming everybody, you sort of get you should know everything like this, but you're not expected to start out knowing that. And eventually, you'll get to where you feel like you're somewhere in the middle. It's just like riding a motorcycle. If you get on the motorcycle and you think you know everything about it, you're going to land in a tree. So you sort of want to reach that balance, respect for the caller and what can happen, and also respect for yourself and what your level is going to be. We're not trained counselors, although we're often called that. We don't. Y'all will see the kind of credentials that you come out with. It's highly trained, which really, in a way, we are highly trained because we get a more intensive training than any other volunteer agency that I've ever been associated with. 30 hours of training, that's right much. That's a lot of training, but as you know, the more you learn about something, the more you learn that you don't know about it. So I expressed, we're supposed to be general practitioners, which is a discipline of breeding in the medical field. So don't feel like you have to know everything about everything. Just kind of, Marge mentioned to let the phone ring twice. Once is to know it's ringing, so that your mind gets into that mindset. Take a deep breath, and then when it rings the second time, or the third, depending on what's going on, pick the phone up, this is contact, may I help you? And then the process begins, and you start asking open-ended questions. Sometimes the person will not shut up. Sometimes they'll be reluctant to say anything, and a comfortable silence, there's nothing wrong with that. If you start out, if the person may make a statement, and you may say, well, tell me more, and they'll sort of want about it a little bit more. And if they're reluctant to speak, you draw them out with open-ended questions. If they want to speak, let them go ahead and get enough out on the table so that they have to take a breath. And you go, tell me more. And they'll continue on for a while until they get to a place where they feel like they've gotten that out of their system. And you say, well, it sounds like you've got quite a situation on your hands. what have you been doing to cope with it? You know, tell you all the things they have happened. And as Marge said, the support system is tremendous. You have family that can help you. You have friends that can share this with you. Do you have a family church? Do you have a support group that works just as well as any other place? And a lot of times the caller will not have a support group simply because the problems that they have overwhelm everyone in their life, and no one has an answer for them. Yet they continue to ask that to the point where they'll alienate themselves from the very people that can help them. So you want to be aware of that. Sometimes people would have support services, would have support systems in their life, but maybe they burn some of their bridges. And ours is one way to suggest how they could get those bridges built back so that they could have a plan. I like to try to develop a plan with someone based on asking them what they feel like they need to do. And then when the call ends, I like to, and everybody probably has a different way of doing this, but I'll recap and say, well, these are the things it sounds like are going on. Is there anything we've left off? Is there anything else bothering you that maybe we haven't gone under? That question often will elicit a lot of other things that they never would have gone into because they weren't asked. The gentleman who did the suicide spoke to, of all the people, the 1,000 people that took calls, only half of them asked the person about this question. Only a third of those ever asked the person if they were able or had a plan to commit suicide. And that's a failure to get to the heart of the problem. So you want to not be afraid of asking open-ended questions and trying to make sure that the caller knows you're listening and knows you understand the situation. And sometimes, and this may be somewhat outside the realm of all training that some people get, but Harry has to be honest with what he says. They say always ask open-ended questions. Well, what have you done about this? How have you tried to solve the problems? But if they had solved other problems, the chances are they wouldn't be on the phone. So sometimes you may need to suggest all the areas that we've got on our resource sheet. So it's very important to try to parse apart what we were talking about, Paul. There is very few times you'll just get one caller that has only one issue. So it's a kaleidoscope, if you will, and it's hard to stop that spinning. But it's often very fascinating to the person taking the call, and very beneficial to learn and look at that kaleidoscope. Very much more difficult to see the patterns and shift as you ask the questions. And when you get to a point where a lot of the rocks inside the kaleidoscope line up, then you feel like maybe you've made a connection. And rapport, of course, is your most important thing to begin with, is making sure you establish rapport. And we have a code name. Everyone can choose a code name. My name is Don. You can use, some people in other cities use their own name. We prefer that you use a code name just because we're a small community. And often I've got a lady that calls, "Oh, Don, I'm so glad I got you." And I'll say, "It's good to speak with you again. What's going on?" And so sometimes I'll say, to build rapport, I'll say, "Well, my name is Don. What would you like me to call you?" That way, you care enough about the caller. If you share your name, it's human nature for people to make that connection and say, "Well, my name is David." Or if they say, "Well, I don't want to tell you who I am," so well, just what can I call you? They can make up a name and have their own code name. So it's code to code if you want it to be. But if they've got a name to call you and you've got a name to call them, that is a huge way to get twined up in honest responses between you and the caller. So with all that said, I'm going to get the first thing on my list. I'm sure this may have been, you can't talk about these things too often, but I wanted to give you my slant on it this morning. Module 4, we've got reassurance calls, and that's probably one of the most enjoyable programs we've got. We sign up people, usually elderly people, who want to remain in their home. The family's concerned about them. They may be right on the brink where they're not sure whether or not they're going to need to get medical help, whether they might be, the famous "I've fallen and I can't get up." I don't know, that must have sold 1 million units with that catchphrase. But there are a lot of people who will fall and can't get up. There was a lady who fell in a bathtub, a year ago, And we dispatched the police and they came in. Had they not come in, she'd been there for a couple of hours, maybe more. And had we not been able to get that person the help they needed, they could have passed away in the bathtub. So the reassurance collar does two things really. It's a safety issue, makes the family feel better, saves the community money because you don't have emergency room visits like you might usually have. EMS dispatches are very expensive. However, the police and 911 do not mind if we call them. That's always your backup. If you run into something and red flags go up everywhere, you can always call 911. They've seen us throughout the 37 years that Contact has been here, and they know we don't call them just on alarm. Is Main Street connected to Brown Street? There are people that will call them on that. They understand that we have the training. When we call them, they know we're serious and we've ascertained that there's a problem that deserves somebody to go out. So don't ever hesitate. 911 is our contact, our lifeline. So the reassurance calls have a second component that I think right next to safety is also as beneficial to the person. Some of these people will say, "Is this Contact?" "Yes, it's Contact. How you doing, Mr. Brown?" "Well, thanks for calling. I'm fine." But you can hang up the phone. That's fine. If that's what they wanted. The family wanted that. They wanted that. They know they're safe in the home. So I've done that business. Now I'm going to do the Sudoku problem or whatever. Then there's other people that you've mentioned pets. Having been the director of the SPCA here in Martinsville for 8 years, I know a little bit about that. And when Linuelo comes to speak about domestic violence, on the back of their cards, the definition is threats to property and pets. And I can't get out of here without telling you the story I kept in my back pocket when I was with the SPCA. And the Contact has this program. It's one of the reassured clients. End up in the hospital. The SPCA would make room in their shelter for their pets. So that it's not like, when we had a flood up in Bassett, 4-wheel drive pulled up to the house, man on his porch with the dog, water rising. They said, "Get in the truck, we're going to take you to the shelter." So he said, "Come on, Rex." We said, "No, you can't take your dog." And he said, "Well, I'm not going either." So, and Red Cross shelters don't allow pets. But that is one thing that is one of the definitions of domestic violence is your pets. My story that I pull out of my pocket is, lady she was being abused, both emotionally and physically. She had 2 dogs. She called the domestic violence shelter, and one of the questions we got them to ask as part of the intake interview was, "Do you have pets that you might be afraid would come to harm?" And basically, that they understand that's one of the things that means the most to them, much often more than their family members. Very few of us might say that out loud, but it's true. I lost a dog of 15 years 2 weeks ago. My wife still has not begun to start the grieving process, probably never will end. So the lady went into the domestic violence shelter. We kept her dog for 31 days, which was the period of time that they helped clients with their that they help people get set up, get counseling, get a new lease on life. Well, the person left and stabilized, and she left. Like happens pretty regularly, she went back to batterer, got the pets, went back with the batterer. Finally, she'd had enough of it. Well, she left the second time, and she left the 2 dogs with him. He knew she had to come back and pick up her belongings. So he killed both dogs and laid them in the driveway for her to see when she pulled up how much he was the boss. So you can't discount. One other story I'll tell is animal related. And it's also safety related. Is we had Red Cross first started their pet first aid. And I went down to North Carolina to take the training. To get that frog and have him for supper. I was standing in line waiting to have lunch, and there were these people making fun of it. "Oh, first aid for pets. Oh, next thing you know, they'll be, getting us satin pillows to put them in the shelter." And I said, "Look, guys, you don't want to get behind, and you don't want to be behind in front of someone who's taking their pet to the vet on an emergency basis. They'll run you off the road." So it's very similar situation. So With the reassurance people, I know one lady, she's got a pet. And I'll hear the pet barking in the background. Well, how's Cuddles today? Oh, she's majestic. She'll go on and on about Cuddles. So that's the social interaction that's a key thing that we have with her, the ties she's got with us and her dog. And there's the famous story where the dog was licking the lady. She told me about this. The dog kept licking the lady on the neck, and when people came to carotid artery, basically was what it was. And I don't know if the dog knew the anatomy of the person or not, but she would lick the owner, lick her on the neck. Basically, what it was doing was keeping blood running to the brain. And when the authorities showed up, they found out that had the dog not been there to do that, she could easily have passed away. So there are other social cues that you want to look into. A lot of these people, as you'll find out, elderly people living alone, they might see one or two people every week. That's all the human interaction they get. And there's a lot of people out there, thousands of them when you think about it, that don't have that human contact. And that's one of the best things our Reassurance program does. Offers them some social contact. We want to grow that program, and we want to spread the word, and we also let people know about it. Because when you come in and you've got the early morning shift, oh boy, I've got 4 or 5 people to call, between 9 and 10, I've got 3 people to call. And it's a great thing. We'll call them, and if the phone rings, they'll understand, oh, they've got a crisis call. Oh, I got to go, Miss Brown. I've got a call, and that's fine. Did you have something, Loretta, you wanted to interject? So that really is, you don't need as much training to do the reassurance. You just have to be kind and gentle and understanding of people. Just think of them as a family. So the reassurance program is powerful, and I like to grow that. And getting into some of the churches and speaking with folks like the congregations in our community and other agencies that we're stakeholders with are going to help grow that program. So I'm real proud of it. In fact, I wanted to double it when I first got here. So that's an easy one. I was so pleased that I got an easy one to go over. Difficult callers, all of a sudden, that indicates that maybe this is a more difficult area to address. And difficult callers can, well, what comes to mind is somebody who calls you just because they're tired, they're pissed off, they just want somebody to complain to, and they'll do that over and over and over again, and they'll have the same issue. They'll be abusive sometimes. They're hard to deal with. If someone's abusive to you on the telephone, that can be it right there. Well, I'm sorry, you can't have that kind of language.
You give them time to vent, at least, with that angry phone call, so they're not venting on their wife or their child.
That's a good point. And it can be difficult for them and us at the same time. And the first time people use less than appropriate language, you give them a break. If you find that they're there to call just to get the satisfaction of cursing and belittling the caller, that's one thing. If you think that they're actually moving in the right direction and you're allowing them to speak their language. I had a man call me, and this is something else that hasn't come up. You don't know whether they're telling you the truth or not. They'll tell you some stories, believe it. And you know some of them are true. I mean, the fiction can't nearly equal what's true in this world. No doubt about that. I had a man call me, and he was awfully upset. It was the anniversary of his father's death. I said, well, I remember when my mother died. And I don't mind telling people I've got some of the same problems as they do. Not confidential or not isn't anonymous about that. He goes, I said, how did your father pass away? He goes, well, he dared my brother to shoot. He just dared him. I said, he went into the house, came back out with a shotgun, and shot him right in the chest. I was standing right there. He said, as a matter of fact, I got a piece of the buckshot in me, and it's still in me. And this time of year is awfully difficult for me. Well, that sounds pretty, blood got all over me. Every time of year this rolls around, I just fall apart. I don't know whatever. I'm going to try to do something to somebody. It can roll, snowball downhill pretty quickly. And you want to credit that as if it could be true. At the same time, you don't want to lose sleep at night thinking about, that poor person, it may or may not have been the truth. The fact is that they were willing to share that with you, makes it real when you're having that conversation. So you run into some situations that are quite difficult, where people will tell you things that they've gone through that are absolutely horrible. And since there are so many horrible things happening in this world, you've got to assume that a large percentage of them are true. And one of the things that makes this work so satisfying is that you get to become a person that people will tell you things they would never tell anyone else on the planet, because they know that you don't know them and that they don't know you. And that's the way it will remain. There's no bank of tape recorders. There's no, there are files on people we call frequently, so that we'll recognize problems and how they change with people. When I first got into this office, I was just, I couldn't believe how naive I was. As anybody who's taken on anything new begins to understand, well, I step over here and it started running up my calf. And if I longer I stay, I go running up over my knees. And if I stay here any much longer, I'm going to have to stand on my tiptoes. But really, it does get to be something that you'll grow with. And you have to assume that a lot of these callers that have difficult problems are difficult. I know this sheet was probably started out being a sheet that means a difficulty to the caller. I mean, to the crisis line specialist, which y'all will earn that august title when you finish the training. Crisis line specialist. That's the title that we have. As they said during the earlier training, we're scheduled, we're certified to handle crisis calls. We're not certified to psychoanalyze them or counsel them or determine a diagnosis. We can, most of the people that call need someone to speak with about issues that they would not speak to anyone else about. We're here to be an outlet to them, and sometimes that includes cursing. So that comes full circle to the man who got the shotgun out, whose father got the shotgun out, and blew his brother away, how probably was standing there and got blood all over him. And he was saying, well, I cannot believe you got after the father and this, after that, and I'll S this, and I'll MF this, and pretty soon it got to the point where that was the way he spoke. Well, I didn't, rules be darned, I started speaking back to him the same way he spoke to me. That was his vernacular, that was his language. I've said that word. But what came about from that was, he said, well, damn, you are real. You're actually talking to me like, nobody's ever talked to me like that. You get it, don't you? And the reason I got it was because I was speaking his language. Now, it wasn't just a cursing contest. It was a communication, establishing communication.
So that goes back to the rapport.
It goes back to the rapport.
Yeah.
When I could speak his language. Sometimes people call them with academic conversations. People call them conversational. This person called with a hurt, very hurtful. And the words people use when they're hurt often are rather dramatic. And I think that may be where curse words come from, is stress levels and how to relieve them, expressing yourself and using it in that unacceptable way is some way to say, I'm stepping out of society now. And this is my game, this is my world, and I'm going to try to share it with you. It's different from the person that calls just to curse at you. Because then you have to say, I'm sorry, that's not what we're here for, and you can put the phone down. And very infrequently will you get a call.
So it's okay to hang up on them?
It's okay to hang up on them.
Because I'm going to curse back.
No. And I'm not asking you to do that. But you had mentioned that sometimes that is that you would let the person vent a little bit. If they say a few curse words and they vent a little bit, well, it might not be what you like, but if you can get them past that and say, well, no, those aren't the words that I use for that, I would appreciate it if you would not use those words with us. We're here to help you, but we don't want to don't really want to use that as a tool of communication. Absolutely. After you say that once, say, I'm sorry, we're going to end the call. We can't have that kind of language. So you've got the right to do that. You've also got the right to speak the way that they speak to you. And, I'm glad. Is the camera on?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dear.
I got you, Harry.
Well, you gotta know that we're honest with you. I mean, I'm not gonna, when something has happened to me, I'm gonna tell you. And you call us up on that list and you go, you won't believe what happened to me. You won't believe what I just heard this person say. Well, we'll say, yeah, we do believe. And this is how it happened with me one time. And decompressing is an important part of serving on the phone. You need to know there are people who are going to call who have probably gone through a similar situation than you have. So you don't ever want to feel like, I've got to put the phone down, suck it up and leave, and not and hold that down inside of you, because that's, everybody knows repressing those feelings that are going to come up somewhere. And you want to be healthy about that.
You know, everybody has a different,
See, I've gone too far. And she's
no, I want to share something else. Everybody has a different level of sensitivity and what they can handle, what they can't. And every call is different, and so you sense the caller, like Harry was saying, why they're saying what they're saying to you. Are they just trying to be difficult? Are they trying to shock you? Or do they really, is it coming from their heart? You know, what is it? We have this one fella, Harry might get into it when he gets into the frequent callers, Jimmy Barber, who calls up. And he's, I would say in his 40s, I think, or somewhere. And he seems to be retarded, if that's accurate, because I can't see him through the telephone. But he'll call up, sometimes he has the darndest conversations, and a lot of them have to do with his mother and his stepmother and his father. And I had him start to get into asking me some sexual questions one day, and it just wasn't my day for that. And I said, I think you really need to ask your parents about that one, or ask your counselor, because I know he has a counselor. Ask your counselor about that one. I don't think that's something I can answer. He said, oh, okay, thank you, and he hung up. So, you know, if it was someone that I felt, you know, had a real need, like if a teenager called up and had some real problems, and I felt like I could handle that call, I could share some information with them. But this particular call, you know, I just have to use my gut and my judgment and say, you know, we're not going to go there, Jimmy, you know, just ask someone else that one. So,
Orange and microphone mentioned right now.
yeah, we got, are you getting into, have you gotten into the frequent callers? Want me to go ahead and talk about him?
You can talk, go ahead, I'll sit down.
Well,
Since you was on Jimmy, I figured.
yeah, we go
Dr.
from
Nancy would be-
difficult callers, we go into the frequent callers, and we have some that are really interesting. And we have this one fella, and we call him Diaper Man. I think we have his real name now, but back when he first started calling, we didn't, and so we had to call him something. So we come up with a name that describes him. There is a paper on him in the office that you can see that'll tell you a little more details about him. He's been calling for years, and I think he calls from New Jersey, I believe. We've decided that he calls from New Jersey. And, yeah, and that's getting more frequent with cell phones.
Wow.
Because people have unlimited calling long distance. They don't care where they are. And they know they're getting anonymous if they call another state.
That's true.
And this man talks about his mommy and feeling like a baby and having his diaper bag and having his diaper on. And he gets into some real interesting conversations. And again, like Harry said, sometimes these people just need to talk. And I have another lady that calls all the time that she's been calling really a lot just recently. She's feeling very down, very lonely, very depressed. She's been in and out of One North. She's tried to commit suicide. She's really an unhappy lady. And she'll call up and she'll start telling me again about her daughters and how her daughters don't call and how her daughters don't care about her. And you know, she'll just go into the same thing over and over and over. And she actually told me one day when I asked her, you know, about her daughter calling and all, I guess they're just sick of me. You know, and like Harry said, I've done it in my own life when I've gotten into a rut. That's something, people see me coming, they'll run the other way. Oh no, not again. You know, get over it already, you know, and that's, you know, not really, you can't say to these people, get over it already. We can try to say that in another way. And on one occasion I said to her, maybe you just need to give your daughter some space. Maybe she'll call if you just give her a few days and let her wait, you know, and just try to work through it. And like I said, some of them are really difficult, and people like this fellow Diaper Man, if he starts getting into things that are really out there, we need to cut the call. We need to tell them. We also try to keep calls down to 20 minutes or less. So we also have that option, and they've heard us say this before. I'm going to have to get off the line now because we try to keep it clear in between calls in case we get an emergency call or someone needs to call through. There's another fellow who calls Jamie's dad, and Jamie's been 16 for at least 5 years that I know. She just doesn't seem to grow any older. And he'll tell you that he thinks she's sexually active, and he'll get into stories about his wife and what she's doing and not doing, and he'll take it as far as you'll let him. If you keep him in control, he will keep the conversation in the right place. And as soon as he starts getting off where I don't want to go, I tell him, well, I need to get off the line now. And
So is that kind of thing?
yeah, and they also know, the frequent callers know, that if you don't want to talk to them and you hang up, if they wait a few hours and call back, they might get that other phone answerer who will talk to them, who can tolerate a little bit higher level. So they're aware of that too. And people will call up and ask for somebody. Is Peter there? No, Peter's not on tonight. Oh, well, I need to talk to Peter. I said, well, can I help you? No, I need to talk to Peter. Okay, fine, thank you, goodbye.
I hate to point at my sister, but I've kind of been the person she calls, and I have 5 brothers and sisters, but she's mentally has some issues.
Mhm.
She had 12 electric shock
Oh
treatments
my goodness.
when she was like 20. I mean, they took the doctor's license, closed the hospital down and everything, but she's now it's like a 3rd or 4th grade level. And she'll call, just like a caller would, and tell about how she's having nasal or sinus problems and go into detail. And you have to mold that, turn it into something different than just always health, or that's what they're totally, like television, that's all what they see. And you have to broaden their outlook.
If you
in
can,
order to
yeah, if
get
you can, you
out
try
of
to
that
focus
type of
it.
pattern.
Yeah, you try to focus it in another direction if you can. If you can't, you can handle it, you sit there and listen, and if you've had enough,
You hang up.
you know,
I mean, I hang up.
hang up as best you can. The I need to get off the phone now because someone might be trying to call in on an emergency is a really good way to get off the phone, because there's really no argument that
I was
I.
gonna say, is there any button you can push to have the phone ring?
I didn't tell you.
Just get yourself on.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
Call contact for
yeah,
yourself, that's a good
they're,
idea.
the ones that call all the time, they know, they can tell, and they know whose buttons they can push. They know which callers they can get away with more, which, phone workers they can get away more with. They're pretty astute. They're not, we don't have stupid people that call us, I mean, they might even be a little bit mental retarded. I have one fellow that called one night and wanted to know a recipe for making meatloaf. That's why he called, and he's one of our frequent callers, and he is a little bit retarded, but he's functional out in the world, and he wanted to know how to make meatloaf. Well, I'm not a cook, and so, what can I say? When my daughter asked me how to make lasagna, I told her to go buy a box of noodles and read it.
Yes.
So, there you go.
Simple.
Tell them to call back when Peter's on.
He makes good meatloaf, he makes good meatloaf. Any other questions about
Will you do me a favor while you're up there, will you explain the 2 phones?
the 2 phones?
Yeah, 2 phones.
Okay, when you get into the phone room, you'll see that we have 2 phones. We have, I think, 4 phone lines altogether. 2 of them are used by the office and 2 of them are used by the phone room. And we have the one phone, which is, we call it the helpline. That's the phone number, that's the phone that people call in. Then we have a second phone sitting in the phone room we call the hello line. If that phone should ring, you just answer it hello. You don't have to answer it contact, you just answer hello. What that phone is used for is and I've never had this happen to me all the while I've been there, if 911 or the hospital or a counselor is trying to get through and the contact line is busy, they have that phone number as a second way to get us so that they can get through. But I personally have never had that happen. The other thing it's for is if I'm on the phone and I have to call 911 and I don't want to hang up with the caller, I can grab that other phone and be on two phones at the same time, and I've also never had that happen to me. So the phone is there, and those are the reasons it's there. Like I said, I've never had to use the second phone line, so I've been doing it a long time. In fact, I've never had to call 911 in all the times that I've been on.
I'll give you the two numbers. The helpline is on the left. That's the one that you will call an hour before you come in the phone room. Y'all need to write this down because the phone number to that one is 632-7295. That's the phone on the left.
And like Marcia said, you call that an hour before your scheduled shift, and that lets the person you're taking over for have a sigh of relief. Yes, they've remembered. They're not going to leave me hanging here. You know, if you don't make that phone call, the person in the phone room, after a reasonable amount of time, will try to call you. If they can't get you, they'll panic and call one of us. And if nothing else, somebody else will take the telephone.
And that's the hello line.
No, that's the helpline. You call the helpline for
Okay.
that. You just call the helpline. And the hello line, I don't know that number.
638-8144.
The other one is 7295.
Yes, and do not call that 638-8144. Do not use that one to call an hour before your shift.
Right.
Please make sure you do the 632-7295.
The reason for that is because we do use call forwarding, and if we are off-site, we don't forward the other phone.
Right.
So the only phone call that we get forwarded is the contact hotline.
Okay.
If you have the 6 to 10 early morning shift, this is the only shift that is going to be like this. If you have that one, call 10 o'clock the night before to find out what time they want you to come in. Because sometimes those people will not, they'll tell you, don't come in till 7. They'll come in till 7:30. They'll just be nice and do it even longer.
Yeah.
But if you cover the 6 to 10 early morning shift, call at 10 o'clock the night before to see what time they want you to come in.
That way you get the person who's doing the overnight, as soon as they come on the shift, you get them right away, and then you can go to bed and they can go on with their business. I personally, when I have an overnight, if I don't have the morning shift, I very often will say don't bother to come in till 7, because for me, it's easier if for some reason I don't get a phone call at 5 or 6 in the morning, I actually can sleep a little longer till 7. And I'm not a 6 o'clock in the morning person, so it's just easier for me to say. I'm not really being that gracious. It's easier for me to say don't come till 7. If I'm doing the overnight in the contact office, it's the same way. I don't want to have to get up at 5:30, make myself look like I'm wide awake so the person coming through the door doesn't catch me snoring. I just assume wait till 7. But everybody has their own preference on that. And so when you call 10 o'clock the night before, they know you remember, they know you're going to be there in the morning. You find out whether or not they're working off-site or whether they're working at the office. And, so you have all that information available to you. And that really, it really is an important thing. I forgot a shift totally about a month ago. Just totally, I think it was it you, Marcia? Yeah, it was Marcia.
That's a lot more.
And when she finally got a hold of me, I'm like, oh no, totally, completely forgot. So as soon as I could, I got on the phones, and she was gracious enough to stay there until I could take over the phones, but really felt bad. I don't know what happened. One of those days. So, I saw Bonnie listening.
She went to the restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Marge, I don't remember if Harry did or not, but will you explain the location?
Okay, we haven't given you the location. When I took training, it was so super secret. Now, we're trying to get a little bit away from this. We are anonymous.
You don't blindfold us, do you?
No, we do have a secret location for the reason that if you are working the overnight shift at this office, you're going to be the only person there. And you don't want these people who are calling you on the telephone to know where you are. So that is the reason for the secrecy of where the location is. It's not to be shared publicly or anything like that. We are right over on Church Street. And I don't know the street number.
But it comes by the sign, the Horseman Company.
407.
407. 407
East
Church
Church
Street.
Street.
East Church Street. Upstairs, there's an insurance agency, and we are the downstairs of this two-story building.
And it's, when I say Horseman, it's Horace. Is that right here?
Horace Mann.
Horse, I'm sorry.
You speak Southern? I'll tell you the northern way, it's Horace Mann. Down here, it's Horace Mann.
Just go to the door and ring the doorbell.
Yeah.
And you will get the person on the phones that will come to the door.
Yeah, we have a doorbell there. We also have a key mounted on the outside of the building. So if the person in there does not answer the phone, or there's someone working off-site, so there's no one to let you in, we have a little box. Should we give the code now?
Yeah, go ahead, because I can't remember.
Okay, there's a little box. It's 5102. And you just put in 5102, and the little thing comes off the wall, and there's a key attached. You open the door, and then you do the code, and you put the key right back in the box. That key is always on the outside. That's in case you have an emergency inside. You know, we could have a phone worker have a heart attack or something in there, and nobody could get in. So the key stays outside. That's where it stays. And that key, you lock yourself in. You're there alone. Yeah. That key stays there. You open the front door, and then there is, when you go in the front door, and this will all make sense when you see the phone room. You go in the front door. To the left is our office. To the right is a door going through a conference room to the phone room, and that key unlocks that conference room door also. The reason that door is locked is because people are coming and going to go upstairs to the insurance agency, and there's a counselor, I think, up there too. And so we want to keep our people, you know, separate and safe. So when you're there alone, you don't have to worry about that. The phone room, I pictured a room with a table and a couple of chairs and a phone sitting on it. Our phone room is a very nice little room. It has a desk, a couch, a recliner, a television set, a comfort home. We've got a little kitchen area. We have snacks and drinks, and you can bring something. We have a microwave if you are going to be there and you think you're going to need something to eat. You can bring a microwave and heat it up. So, you know, we have pretty much all the comforts of home.
You got rid of the bed?
We just have a couch.
Something's usually.
We have a couch and a recliner.
Okay.
I personally, if I spend the night there, I bring my sleeping bag because that couch is scratchy. So I lay my sleeping bag out on the couch and I sleep in that. It's much more comfortable to me.
Well, they used to have a bed.
I heard that. That's before my time. They got rid of the bed before I got there. So of course we have a bathroom, all the facilities, you know, so everything you could possibly need. We have air conditioning and heat, and it's a very comfortable office. Very nice.
Got a question. The key that you get out the front door to unlock, you put it back in that, and then there's another key inside,
No, use that same key, unlock the front door and the conference room door,
then bring that key back out.
and bring the key back out. But I always make sure I ring the bell and wait, because I don't want to surprise the phone worker in there. I want to give them a chance to come to the door first.
What are we going to be using the conference room for?
Nothing, you just walk through it.
You just want to walk through it. Okay, I understand.
This will all become crystal clear when you get there.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it in the abstract.
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused.
I'm just kind of giving you that. When you go in the front door, you'll go to the right through a door, and you'll be in a conference room. So
Gotcha.
you're like, where's the phone room? Just keep going.
Yeah,
And you'll see the phone room.
So are y'all waiting for everybody to see?
No, not always. If Harry's there during the day, Harry or Paula is our office person. Marcia's sometimes there at night doing some work. So you're not always there alone.
I won't be there tonight.
And during the day, you know, people are coming and going, and you'll have people coming and going to the insurance place upstairs. It depends on your level of comfort. You can leave the conference door open when you're there during the day if you want to, or you can shut it and lock it. Just, you know, whatever your level of comfort is. We want our workers to feel.
That key, does it go to everybody, ones upstairs and all?
No, It's just our key.
Charles Key.
It's our key, but the people that work upstairs, of course, have the key to that same door. And you'll see when you come into the vestibule, it's a big old house that they made offices downstairs and upstairs. So when you come into the vestibule, there's a stairway going upstairs, and you can't lock them separate, but we can lock ourselves out. And we've never had any problem at all. He's the landlord. The insurance man upstairs is our landlord, and very nice people. So we've got a nice area, a nice section. It's a nice area on Church Street. It's right across from the YMCA.
I knew I'd seen that little sign that said 407. I knew I'd seen that somewhere.
Horseman
That's where
Insurance
it is.
Agency. Yeah,
Okay.
it's Horseman Insurance Agency. That's what we're doing. Any other questions?
If y'all will, piece of paper, please write down your email address, so I can get you set up on iCarol. I will send you an email to explain to you a little bit how to use it and to go in and watch the videos on how to use it. And also write down when you want to work in September. I need your 12 hours completed by the end of September. We'll work around your schedule, whether it be an hour a day or 2 hours a day or 4 hours a day. I know Ruth is signed up for 4 hours a day to get hers out of the way, and Danny is signed up. So if you will, just kind of write down a piece of paper when it's convenient for you to work. And that way I can make sure whoever the CLS is in the phone room, they know you're coming and they are comfortable with you being there. Because if they're not, then me or Harry or Marge or Loretta will have to come in and do it.
Is there anyone here that's definitely afraid of computers and doesn't use one?
Okay, I don't use one very much.
Don't use one much? But
I'm
you've
good
been
at Google.
You've all been on it.
If you can Google, you can do iCarol.
Yeah, I know I can do
iCarol
it,
is
and-
very user-friendly.
Yes,
It's very easy, and when you get on there, the videos that Marcia's talking about are, they just walk you through the iCarol process. You just sit there and watch your computer, and it goes through and tells you everything that you'll be doing.
The language is
And
easy to
using
understand.
iCarol is not a requirement. We want to get all of our volunteers onto iCarol and to be using it. When we're on a telephone call, when I'm on a telephone call, what I do is I have a pad of paper, scratch paper, and I just take myself little notes as I go of what the person is saying, just so that down the conversation, I don't mind drift off. And they say something and I'm like, oh no, what did they just tell me? You know, I'm making myself little notes as I go. When I get all done, we have what we call our blue call sheets. This is our non-computer method of doing things, the way we used to do it. We have a blue call sheet, and on this call sheet, we put information like the name of the caller if we know it, or we give them a name. Worried mother, concerned father, drunk man, you know, whatever we can use. If we have their phone number from caller ID, we put down the phone number down there. I usually write caller ID next to it so that whoever might be looking at that call sheet will know that that's how I got the number. I saw it on caller ID. We put down the day, the time of the call, how long we were on the call. So as soon as the phone rings, I write on this piece of paper the time. And then as soon as I hang up, I know how long I've been on the phone. Otherwise, you can ask me 5 minutes from now, what time did I start talking? And I couldn't give you a clue. So I write everything
I know
down.
what you mean.
And then the other thing we put down is the caller code. And this is our judgment, Paula. We do the best we can. We try to sort through. On our call sheet, we usually only put one code, but in iCarol, we can put more than one code. So if the person is depressed and suicidal or whatever, we try to pick the most important aspect of the call if we can, but if we need to use more than one, we do. And then we have a little section where we put down what the caller's opening statement was and a little information about the phone call. Down the bottom, we check, was this helpful? Did we make a referral? It's a very simple form to fill out. And basically, after I have all my notes in place, I go into iCarol, or I already have it open, and I pull up a new call sheet in iCarol and I fill in the blanks. It's really very simple
Actually quicker
process.
than it is to
It
write it
is.
out.
Yeah, I don't even write the call reports anymore now. I was for a while. We're crossing over, and it's kind of hard changing the system, but I just put it right in iCarol. It's much easier, and it's done.
And when you're in the phone room, if you mention iCarol to whoever the CLS is in there, if that is training you, they might look at you and say, I have no clue, I don't use it. So if that's the way it is, and y'all want more training on it, contact me, and we'll sit down and go over every bit of it. I have no
Yeah,
problem.
it's not all of
Not
our phone
everybody is
workers.
using it.
Not all of our phone workers are comfortable with computers, and we're working on that. We
Marge,
really want-
one other thing I want you to go over real quick, can you explain to them PCS and our partnership with them?
PCS, Piedmont Community Services, is our local counseling service. Most everybody has at least heard of them. A lot of the people that call us are clients of PCS. If the person calls in and they want to speak to a counselor and they insist, we are required by PCS to be a counselor for them, because their state contract says that they will be available to their clients 24/7. So it's up to their counselor to decide what he's going to do with that. But if I get a call in the middle of the night and this person, wants to talk to a counselor, I'll say, well, what do you need? Is something I can help you with? I'll try to talk them out of it, because I don't want to be a counselor in the middle of the night and they want me to. The person says, no, I need to speak to my counselor. Okay, fine. I speak to the counselor. Most of our funding, this is very important, most of our funding comes from PCS. They are our major supporter. So we want to make PCS happy, we want to follow their rules, we want to do everything we need to do for them. And what we do for them is, whenever their office is closed, we are open. So we're 24/7, so we're okay that way. But we have got to make sure that on holidays, snow days, weekends, overnights, we have somebody on the telephone. Because if we don't answer that telephone, they're going to pull their funding from us.
Do you have a list of people that like to go out in the snow and everything? I mean, because I don't mind.
I know, I hate to tell you, but it's probably that list of people we gave you. You just call one of us and we'll find a way.
Oh, well, I was going to say I would always find a way because I'm from Nebraska.
Well, that's really good to know.
It's just,
That's really good to know. Once you get your feet good and wet, we'll put you on our list.
but it's ridiculous how people freeze in this town.
But there are some people that just don't know how.
the worst.
And a lot of people don't have four-wheel drives. Now, where I live, I can't get out.
Right.
They just say no way. There's no, a four-wheel drive might get out. I don't have one. So if I have a shift and the roads are icy, I can either do it at home or I can't come in. There's just no way. So, around here we have a lot of that.
Well, I was gonna say, ice is different than snow.
But ice or snow. Ice or snow. I mean,
I'll
if
fill out
the
with snow,
roads-
no
if-
problem.
If the road is wet, I might not get out. But, I live at the bottom of it.
Now, what is the difficulty? Let's say that we have an ice storm and roads are just treacherous, you cannot get out. How difficult is it to switch it to your home and then coming into the office?
We have some people who live close to the contact office who are also willing to run in and switch phones for us if we have to. We are working on a new system. Virginia just got a new system very recently that will allow us to remotely forward phone calls.
Okay.
But it is not an easy system to use. Harry tried to show it to me one day, and the day he tried to show it to me, it didn't work. So that's okay. I said, that's okay, Harry, when you get all the bugs worked out, you tell me how it works, and then we'll work it. But it's brand new, Virginia never had it before. We were looking into getting an answer service to do this for us, pay a monthly fee.
States that have it.
Yeah, it's not very many states. You have to go on the phone and you have to, put your code in, you have to put your password in, and you have to listen to a lot of beeps and boops and push all the right buttons and then put in the number that you want it transferred to, and it can be done. And so we're working on that. But in the meantime, we do have several people who live close to contact office. And if you call and say, I can't get in to do my shift, either they'll forward it to you if you're qualified to have it at home, or they'll forward it to someone who can take it at home. So that works. Don't be afraid to make a phone call.
Yeah, I put on the sheet, you said to put the times that you could work and you're available, that my daughter is pregnant and she's due on September 21st. I really want to be there.
If you have an emergency come up, you call one of the phone numbers that you got, and we scramble and we get your shift covered. We'd rather it didn't happen, but we will.
There is something I wanted to tell y'all. During the month of September, when y'all were doing your training in the phone room, you are allowed during that time frame to work 1 or 2 hours at a time. But in October, when you go on the phones, you will see how our hours are scheduled out. It's an increment of 4 hours. We don't do split shifts right now because it's very difficult because we have a limited number of volunteers. So once you go in the phone room in October, you will be working a 4-hour shift. So just make sure you know that.
Now, you know, again, if something happens and you find out you're gonna be a half hour late, you gotta get off a half hour early, a lot of times the person before or after you on the phones will work with you on that. So, you know, so we try. Bonnie Lee, are you ready?
She's getting her flip chart out.
Give us a break to use the restrooms.
Okay, let's take a break. Toilet, restrooms, snacks, drinks.
Oh, that's right, just left the GN now. Thank you.
Okay, everybody circle back up. We've got Bonnie Lee here, and she's gonna talk with us about sharing our faith. And, I'm sure it's gonna be very interesting because Bonnie's always very interesting. Well, thank you.
Yes, I do have yours. I just need your hours.
And I'm in the wrong place to be able to see what you're writing.
How's everybody?
Doing well.
Doing well? Okay.
March, do you want to switch to that back? So, I can schedule you in the 10 to 2 meeting. Whichever day
Okay, folks, let's give Bonnie Lee our attention and we'll get back to our scheduling.
All right. Is everybody ready? Ready? Boy, I can tell you, I'm assessing the situation. Not everybody wants to share a faith today. He is doing okay, not the best. He's transferred to now. He'll be there a couple of weeks. His heart capacity is down to 8. All right, faith. Before we get started, I want to enter into a covenant with this group this morning. And the covenant will be that we will not engage in any debate over faith issues. So do I have everybody's with that? Because this is going to be kind of a different topic, and as you've always heard, not to be in conversation with politics or religion. We're really not going to talk about religion per se, because we're going to talk about sharing faith. And it's really what we're going to be focusing on is this right here, the sharing part. And I know a lot of times when we enter into conversations with people about our faith, it can be a sticky wicket area. So we're all in covenant, right? Okay. I want to start out with the principles of pastoral care. Why do that? I'm going to set that groundwork right now, is to say that this is not my way of doing, or that I came up with this. This is a national perspective of pastoral care ethics. For example, I'm a hospital chaplain, and when hospital chaplains are trained, we're trained in the very same discipline about faith, religion, interfaith, non-denomination. And the ethics look at perspectives that, especially, for example, in the healthcare arena, we have people that come into the hospital thinking that they have the right to go room to room and proselytize, meaning winning souls. That is against all pastoral care ethics. Again, that is not my perspective, that, I mean, I agree with it, but I didn't come up with this. So I'm setting the foundations here. Everybody with me? So if I hear that somebody comes in to the hospital doing that, first of all, the ethics come into play in the perspective that you don't engage somebody in their worst time of their life to try to go in and give your understanding of faith. They are at their most vulnerable. So the same perspective holds true for contact. Is everybody with me? Okay. And I'm a firm believer, I won't mention, religion today, but I'm a firm believer that God, the God of all faiths, does not need us browbeating people when they're vulnerable. Okay? Now, I know that some of you may not agree with me on that. You have your right to do that. But again, I'm holding pastoral care of that. And we're going to look at that today, sharing your faith. So, to begin with, so are we okay with everybody? So to begin with, when I say the word faith, what comes to mind? Belief. Belief in something I cannot see.
Trust.
Something that may have no rational basis.
Okay. You may not.
Giving.
Giving. I learned early on in ministry that this right here is very unique to every individual. There is no two people, just take one church, there is no two people in one church that believes the exact same way. Okay? And I'm saying that to be an example to say how unique this is. Faith is also something that is very, very sensitive to a lot of issues, culture, denominations, but it's very sensitive to a person's life. And it can be very traumatic for an individual if you mess with that. Does everybody understand where I'm coming from? So I engage personally as a minister or chaplain in very sacred territory when I engage somebody about their faith.
It's very personal, very personal.
Personal, thank you. Love that word. Love that word, thank you.
People don't like to mess with their personal.
They don't, do
There's
they?
boundaries.
Boundaries, beautiful. Now you get it. All right, thank you, thank you, thank you. Their whole view of life may well be based upon this issue. So you see how sacred it is. Now, my faith, when I engage somebody else, That's my faith. I have no need. I'm secure in my faith. I have no need to change somebody. That is not my job. That is not my task. Okay? This faith is based upon a relationship. So what comes to mind when I say that?
An interaction between you and something or someone.
Your belief system. Yeah, exactly. So you can see why this has all this, because it is a relationship. Okay? So I respect that relationship. Okay? So I have no need. I'm secure. I'm secure in my faith relationship, that I don't have to embark upon somebody else or infringe upon theirs. Because life is a journey in many, many ways. And I feel, remember we talked last time, that if I get in the way of somebody's journey, I may be impeding whatever relationship or resources that person has with their faith. Okay? Now, I know some of you may be thinking, but, well, our faith, our particular faith tradition says that we must share, we must win souls. Again, that's your faith tradition, and possibly mine. But my role and task as a chaplain is not to do that. Now, as a role in chaplain, I can engage people in their faith journey if they so choose and they request. So you see the difference? A lot of my parish colleagues get in a bind when I start talking about these things, especially when they want to come and volunteer at the hospital. So I set up all this first, and they were saying, well, what do you do as a chaplain? Aren't you a faith person? Yes. I engage people in faith if they open the door. You see the difference? Okay.
You have different pastors at the church. I mean, not at the church, at the hospital. Quite a few of them, and they report to you then? Because I had the religious experience, a pastor that was in a cancer center. It wasn't you.
Okay.
And I was just wondering if they all reported to you, or do they make like a list, like?
They're supposed to have a badge. If they have the badge, then they have contact with me. If they do not have a badge on, then there's somebody that's doing something they don't need to do. So, but we'll talk about that later.
As a pastor, I do not go to the hospital unless I'm invited to the hospital.
Exactly.
Because I have no right to be in there and otherwise. And I've also been a chaplain for hospice. So I know the chaplain side is different than the pastor's side.
It is, too.
And on both sides, I have shared the faith, but only if I'm asked.
Exactly.
And if I go to the hospital if I'm asked,
Exactly.
then I share my faith.
Right. Exactly.
But into the Allen Street, different ballgame.
Right. Yeah, it's different ball. The setting is different. I understand. And respect it. So, now, I'll put this word back up because this is kind of wrong. Trauma. You are engaging individuals at their worst situation in their life. They're in crisis. And if we do not handle or respect the sacredness of it, then we could possibly cause more trauma. Is everybody with me? What do I mean? What do you hear? What are you thinking when I say that?
Get a deal to somebody who's already been.
Yes.
Disruption of their, their sense of balance.
State, yeah.
State of being, yeah.
Yeah, I'll put states in this. The unstable. They're already unstable, emotionally, mentally.
They might start second guessing themselves.
Might add to the grief.
Beautiful, yes.
Increased vulnerability.
Now, let's just play that through. What is one scenario or a couple scenarios that could happen after you got off the phone?
To hurt yourself,
Yes.
for saying the wrong thing.
What's the worst case scenario?
Made somebody worse than what they are.
Take it a little further.
Harming themselves.
Right. They could very well harm themselves.
Or someone else.
Or someone else. We hear it in the news every day now, don't we?
Just happened to my wife's family.
Yeah. Exactly.
We went home, wouldn't pay the house payment, wife didn't know it. We came to foreclose. He shot her and she was.
Whole family accident.
Yes, it was happening. Right?
So the ramifications could be detrimental, couldn't they? So is everybody with me on this? When I said this is sacred stuff, it really is. So we could cause trauma rather than those are two questions, right? So how do we do it, and when do we do it? Okay. I'm throwing it out there to you.
Well, part of the how could be, asking them, when you're asking them about their support, do you have any, is there a church, is there, a minister you can speak with?
Yes. Get them to review their support systems. If they say one of their support systems is their church, hallelujah. That's good. Then we want to kind of ask or assess is, what would we be assessing? Let's bring up the church.
Just what their faith is.
Okay. Well, you could ask it, what is your
Well, how strong? Not necessarily what is your faith. Do you have faith? Do you have a belief?
Yeah,
Can you find any comfort in,
There we go. We might not want to just openly ask directly what their faith is, because we might not be ready to share that. But we want to assess, is it,
Beneficial.
yeah, is it beneficial?
because hopefully it is.
And the word here, is it a healthy resource? That's how I do it. Is it a healthy resource? Do you feel respected, loved, and cared for at your church? Are the resources available to help you cope and deal with this issue?
And sometimes people underestimate their own healthy resources. They feel like they're all alone and they don't even attempt to contact the church because they think, well, I'm just one in 1,000 members, come on. And that can be anything from the truth, that they don't know who you are. And I even have, for instance, I canceled reservations this week for a week-long conference, and they were Christian counselors, and I thought, well, I need really a counselor a little bit myself about grieving, but when I called in and canceled that reservation, they have thousands of members. They knew exactly who they were talking to right away, and it felt like, well, I could have overlooked that before. And I didn't, but you know, sometimes people, you really don't realize how much support you do have if you just open up and ask.
Exactly.
And people have a hard time asking.
Exactly. They do, don't they? Yeah. And that's to be respected and embraced. The vulnerability, you know, how that prevents us from moving forward. I'm just going to come off a little bit of the trail. I just want to make, and this is for resources, because, you know, as contact crisis line workers, you offer resources. There is a very difference, I won't say big difference, but it's a difference between a Christian counselor and a pastoral counselor. They're both effective. Christian counselors are exactly what it says is Christian. So they're going to be more biblical in their kind of style of counseling, whereas pastoral counselors are more open and respectful of all the traditions, and they're going to be focusing on meaning, identity, and destiny to guide people through their situations. They're both effective, and actually I've been in counseling with pastoral counselors for many years. They have saved my life. Okay, they have saved my life. When you look at the difference from where you've been and where you are, hallelujah. Something you can't put into words. But there is a difference. Because sometimes people think the same thing. They're not the same thing. They both are effective, but this is more specific because of the word Christian. Okay? The other thing is, and I'll just highlight this, pastoral counselors go through extensive certification processes. Christian counselors do have certification. Some do and some don't. So be careful with some of that.
Well, yeah, you need to ask who they're associated with, because each association has different regulations of who can be a counselor or not. And just like the American Association of Christian Counselors, they only allow 5% of their members to be lay people, and that's with a college education. You're still a lay person. So I think they're a step. And they're not always counseling Christian wives. They have to be careful because they need to be Christian themselves. But they can't spew that out to their people and push them away.
Right. Now, pastoral counselors I know a little bit more about. In Virginia, you have what's called VIP Care. That's the Virginia Institute of Pastoral Counselors. It's a state association. In North Carolina, it's associated with Wake Forest Baptist Hospital down here in Winston-Salem. They have what's called CareNet. And so North Carolina and Virginia has a state organization where their pastoral counselors have to go through extensive training and certification processes. And they have offices all over the state of Virginia and North Carolina. So you're pretty much guaranteed excellent pastoral counseling with these folks. Okay? All right, let me get back on track. There's something said a while ago. When you see me making little notes, because my memory is not as good as it used to be. We'll go on. So So it's really about assessing what their particular need is and what they've opened up to you about. So if they have, let's say we use the word church, we've heard the word church in the conversation. So you want to assess, is it beneficial, does it provide healthy resources? Okay, come to me. Something was said on here, I think the lady here said something about resources and stuff. When you come to the church, if it's healthy, they can go to the pastor, they can go to particular people that are set up depending on the system and the denomination. But many times, let's say you have a parish minister and you have a chaplain. What do you think most of the time which one people will go to? It's not because we chaplains are special or anything, but it's a reason.
Well, that's, chaplain, chaplain,
Yes.
they don't feel, as,
Yes.
Threatened.
yeah.
Yes.
I didn't
Yes.
say that.
No, you're right on track. You're right on track. What happens then? We are unknown to them. So it's kind of like they're coming to somebody they do not know. In parish settings, sometimes people may, it's not that that's what's happening, but they may interpret or feel uncomfortable about talking to their own pastor because of the situation involved. They may feel embarrassed. They may feel, it's no disrespect to you, there are some pastors that may use that issue in the pulpit the next Sunday.
I've had people from other churches, not down here since I've been here, but up in the Australia County, that would call me, and I ask why you call me for, because I don't want my pastor to know, and it's a situation of infidelity or
Exactly.
homosexuality and this and that, and I have to deal with that with them. But I've always led them, a good friend of mine, Robert, who's a Christian counselor, to handle that because that's out of my expertise.
Exactly.
I know, but I'm there to listen to them, to have prayer with them, and send them to what I think they need.
Y'all hear this? This is beautiful. This is beautiful. Thank you. That's exactly it. So they may need a resource that is not as close to them as the church. Okay. Good point. So we're going to assess it. All right. Let's say somebody's called up and the issue is homosexuality. Now, another sticky wicket area is the conversation. Yeah, next headline. Yeah. Now, our role and duty and task is not to change them. It's to assess what resources they have in place to help and for them, resources in place to help them cope and deal with what they're doing, right? That's what our task is. So, we were trained early on in chaplaincy that we have issues with these topics, which we all do. I mean, it's normal. But we've got to deal with them before we start helping people. Because that's what we're doing, is helping people, not causing more trauma. Okay? The issue, when a person's calling, they're talking about homosexuality, they're not wanting us to give our opinion about homosexuality. And if they should bring up the issue, well, you know, I know that people say that we're going to hell, it's a sin, and I don't know what to think about all this. I can't help who I am.
Well, hasn't the Lutheranist ministry accepted homosexualities for pastors now?
Well, some denominations have, yes.
Other
Trying to.
But it's still a very difficult situation. I mean, it's very tense. And don't kid yourself, it's not. And I want you to know that it's like every other issue. It causes very tense emotions and feelings. And if you have them, Now's the time to deal with it.
There could be people that are anti-homosexual and calling about that issue too. And you have to keep your ears open about somebody that wants to commit a hate crime. You know, there's a lot of people out there like that.
See how one topic can get you to another?
I think, and the whole point though is with any of the callers and the homosexual, is we're not here to judge them. That is not our,
That's exactly.
we're just here to talk, discuss, not pass judgment. That's
We're here
not
to
what we're
listen.
to do.
We're here to listen and we're here to help. But just the conversation right now is a prime example. That's why I'm saying we need to deal with these issues before we get on the phone with people. Okay? So we're not, your interpretation and your opinion is yours. I respect it and I will fight for it. Doesn't mean I agree with it or anything like that, but you all have a right to your opinions. But your opinion is not what is needed here in your task and duty as a crisis line worker. Are we all on the same page?
You totally open to this.
Yes. And that's with any topic. That's with any topic. So, how? Basically, you're going to be assessing. You're going to be listening. You remember to the gifts? Remember when I was here a couple of weeks ago? The gift. They give you a gift. Their message is your gift. It's going to have what? Two things. Feelings and thoughts. That's what you're listening for. To help navigate them. Okay? Navigate. So basically, how is assessment. Now, they may ask you, what is your faith tradition? How's it been helpful to you? Well, there's the door. But I caution you in opening that door. I think it's best to keep it very specific and quick. Because we're there for the caller, not for ourselves. That's right.
So
Exactly right.
we're just like a short-term solution to try to lead them to what they really need.
Exactly. As to resources.
Correct.
Yes.
Resources.
Now, how I would respond to that, and I get asked a lot of times, is I have a faith tradition. It's very helpful for me. Period. Well, they may ask you, how does faith help a person?
Helps give you hope.
Yeah.
It keeps their state of mind at an even level instead of a panicky level.
Keeps us.
Well, quite a lot of the time, that's why they can get up every day and continue with their daily chores, no matter what, because they know that their faith is sustaining them.
So, you see what kind of questions can be asked by a person? But the best rule of thumb is to stay generic. I know people don't like that when we talk about faith, but it's very, in this role and duty and task, it's best to keep generic. You know what I mean by that?
Comes at a discount price.
Yeah. Sometimes it does. So how is actually based upon your assessment skills and navigating them, guiding them to the resources. Now, it's best to have some knowledge in your community of the traditions. And to say, okay, we have a Jewish temple. If you haven't experienced Sabbath, please go to it because it's beautiful. It is wonderful. A Sabbath service is just beautiful. So we have Beth Sokol, who is the rabbi. She actually lives in Greensboro, commutes here, I think, every 2 weeks. They have temple. We have James Shabazz, who is the imam, the Muslim imam here. He's a wonderful human being. And I've heard him pray and preach, and my goodness, he's phenomenal.
I enjoyed his letters. Yes.
We have, let's see, we have Lutheran, we have a Lutheran church, we have an Episcopal church, we have numerous Methodist church, because we have a Methodist district here. We have numerous Baptist churches, which that falls from the organization here, Henry County Baptist Association. We have Independent Baptist, we have Pentecostal, Holiness, Pentecostal, so evangelistic. So we have numerous. I mean, for this small community, we are actually richly blessed with many faith traditions.
Actually, it's an eye-opener to go to these different churches too, because of their, you get to see the different beliefs people have. You also see the similarities, but if you go out and let yourself open to all these different kinds, you understand personally a little bit more, because their faith can be
Almost be what?
almost anything.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean, I'm a firm believer that a human being, when they come into the world, they are given some point of reference to a faith tradition. So it's there. I've heard many people say, little hoodie faith, yeah, you gotta listen. You have been present with it. Because it's there. Thank God it is. But they have some reference to a faith. It may not be well developed. Mine's still developing. I don't know about yours, but mine's still developing. So every human being has a point of reference to faith.
Everybody's developing until they become like Christ. So,
As to the Christian tradition, yes. Yes.
Everybody say good morning, Lynn.
Can't sneak in.
It's all right. So, in the how, what's the word? That's right. Opinion?
Keep to yourself.
Right. That's a big no. Okay? So everybody's on track? Is everybody comfortable? I'm going to check in because, again, this is a very sensitive issue. So is everybody okay? Our utmost task and role and duty as chaplains is care. Care for the spirit, care for the soul. So I'll make sure everybody's okay. All right, when. So how do we answer the question when?
When they ask, when they open the door.
Right.
That kind of goes back to ties in with the assessment.
It does, doesn't it? They're very close. Very tied closely together. So, any questions so far?
Bonnie, somewhere that Ben Franklin T there ended up with heavy on the left.
It did, didn't it?
I just want to back up a second. There needs to be something under the plant.
Okay,
Just
cool.
fill that out just a little bit.
All right.
And if we can't answer the right questions, maybe you could get us started.
Okay, gotcha. So when they ask, well, is that the only other thing?
You could ask, that could be it. It goes back to the assessment.
All right, when we're listening, and towards the end of the conversation, when you're reviewing resources, situation I encounter in the hospital setting, I'm doing the same thing actually, what I'm sharing with y'all today. So towards the end, or somewhere, it depends where, it's just like, that listening, active listening is so crucial because it's like, it's gonna give you cues when to,
Somebody maybe asked me, but not verbally. It's
Yeah.
buried somewhere in their conversation.
so usually I ask people I'm working with, do you have a faith community? Is that helpful to you? Now, as a chaplain, I would say, would you like first contact? You know, but for you, it's like, what would you say? It's a different setting.
Do you feel comfortable in contact?
Yeah. Would you feel comfortable in contacting your church or your pastor? Let's say they say yes, what do you do from that point?
Suggest that they do that, yes. Or if they don't, would you recommend talking to someone else, or?
Are you, are you able to do that right now? I mean, do you see yourself doing that in the next day?
That plan of action.
Yeah, exactly. Do you see yourself doing that the next day?
You
Will
know,
it be possible?
those types of questions also, if you're listening close enough, can be put off by the person on the other line and can lead to you wondering if they're really safe at home or not. Like if they say, well, I have a faith base, but it doesn't matter. You know, if they become discouraged every time you're talking to them, then you have to also consider their state of mind and depression.
Or maybe they just don't feel comfortable talking with their minister at their church and maybe someone else.
And so how you would handle that would be, it sounds like you may have some hesitation there. Is this something that, I mean, it sounds like you may have some hesitation there in contacting your pastor. Is there another faith resource that would be more comfortable with you on that? And they say, well, I don't know. And that opens the door to say, well, we have these resources in the community.
And I think one thing we need to be aware of is that in this shifting society we have, the agnostics and atheists are a significant part of the population. For everyone to automatically assume that people have a faith in one of the religions.
Or a church.
Church, pastor, however, you just need to be aware that you're going to get, you may step on some nerve endings if you go down, if you expect people, everyone that calls in, to have a traditional faith or any faith at all.
Agnostic and atheists, sometimes, for the most part, atheists are very direct. They're going to tell you probably up front, I'm an atheist. Now, how's that? I want you to do something for me. Just take a minute. How does that make you feel? Hey, I'm like that. I'm an atheist.
Sorry about that.
Now, we're not being responsible for it.
No,
You know.
It's their choice.
Tell me what you feel. Tell me what you feel. Tell me what you feel. Right?
Initially,
Why am I
somebody-
Yeah.
and I would not even go to religious or faith route. I would, you know.
But how does it make you feel? Somebody says that?
I feel like they're missing out on a lot.
Say that, Ruth.
I feel like they're missing out on a lot, not really. I feel sorry for them, but I'm like him, I don't think I'd say it.
It's their choice.
I was wondering why they would want to share that with you immediately.
Yeah, okay, that's okay. Hold on, one real quick, and my apologies, but I'm just gonna make sure. Okay. To the safety parents record, so. All right, so let's go with the shot here. Ruth, we're gonna come back, okay? Good one. All right, shot. All right, how do you deal with that? Because that's what's gonna happen sometimes on the phone. All right, for shot, what else?
It would bring up some feelings in us.
It would, just like Ruth said.
Certainly not gonna judge them.
Okay. But it's gonna bring the feelings out. Let me step back.
Maybe unsureness of how to speak with them because you have faith.
I would be, for for me, I could be very dishonest to share with you that I didn't have any feelings about it. But that's not my role and function. We're human beings. We're limited and we're fallible. I've got to take my feelings because it is not about me. This is not about me. It's about them. And I'm like you. You know, 15 years of ministry, you evolve. You know, you work with your feelings. You work with your feelings to get to a point where you can be of more care and help to someone. Because if I have those kind of feelings, which I maybe did at first, that's going to be a big wall there. Because then it becomes about you and not them. Okay? Okay. So yeah, shock, feelings, what else? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I think you're right, we're not to judge. But for us to say we don't have feelings about it, because I'm hearing them already.
I would respect that person,
Yeah, exactly.
It's their opinion, it's their, you know, it's got no reflection on me if they don't believe. You know, it's not gonna change my mind.
Exactly.
I think a lot of times, at least it's been my experience, is that when I've been confronted by someone who says that they're agnostic or an atheist, it's almost in a challenging manner.
Beautiful.
Like they're daring me to take them on.
Exactly.
Whereas if I just opt not to do that, there may be a door left open there that at some point down the line they may decide, maybe I might want to check see what's on the other side of that door.
Okay, how do we in conversation go with this? Danny, say to me.
Hi, Bob. I am proud atheist.
Danny, tell me about that. How is that for you?
You think that we want.
Yeah.
We just live day to day, and whatever I feel like doing, I have that freedom. I feel compound, or I feel fixed in, and what I want to do is how I do.
That must be.
Yeah.
So you see, yeah, but you see what it is? I want to know about that. I want to know about that. What does that say to a person?
But you care.
You're interested in what?
And you're accepting.
You're accepting and interested. And the thing that I have found out over the years, close to 30 years of pastoring, you'll be surprised if you don't make a confrontation with them, how you can begin to draw them in your camp. Because they see that because you care about them.
Right, and it's a mutual respect.
You know, and you can also, well, that goes into one more thing.
Now, the thing of it is, you know, when he's sharing that with me, and it's kind of taking the edge, it's diffusing actually the challenging part. You see what I'm saying? Where I learned that was working in the psych, trained psych chaplain. So, you know, that's a scary territory. When I first started out, I'm like, ooh, I was okay with the open adult units because that's addiction and abuse and all that stuff. But you go into the closed unit with the episodes and real mental illnesses. I mean, you know, how do you do that? So my supervisor said, finally, let them be your teacher. Let them teach you. Let them teach you about mental illness. So that's how you do that. Well, share that with me. What's that like? How's that been helpful for you? Yeah. And it becomes a mutual respect.
Besides the call, when a person calls is about whether he's an atheist or agnostic, whether you see that out there right at the beginning. It's about something else.
No. that's a, we think so.
It is, a lot of times, it is. Now, agnostics, for a view that are not sure about that, that's people who are kind of like, I don't know which way to go. They have some form of belief system, but it's not well developed. It's not well developed at all. So it's kind of the difference. All right. Here's my little stick figure. It's androgynous. So, what is it about a person? First of all, they're a human being. And I like this word here. Remember the word human being, being. And that's what we're doing with people when we're on the line. We're being present. This is a sacred. This is a sacred relationship.
And whether they're religious or not, we're talking about their being, what is good for them and what will help them. We're not advising or listening, of course, but it's all about the being.
Being present, caring, listening, contact.
So you see how all this takes the edge off of sharing your faith?
We do have some people too that once they open that door, you have the opportunity to ask them, would you like me to pray with you? If they've opened the door. I have had some people that have asked me, that either have asked me or have led me to feel like I can ask that question. And they have said yes. Or they'll say no if they don't want you to, but that's not something you can say cold. You have to first have the door open.
Now, with the policies and procedures, is that allowed through contact?
If the caller thinks it would be helpful.
If they request it.
And if you're not comfortable with it, maybe you're not sure that your interpretation of faith is the same as theirs, you could ask them about, well, have you normally prayed? What is yours? Things like that. I'm here to help you with that.
Very good.
I was also say, you could just say, I'll be thanking of you, good blessing for and such.
Actually, the terms that are somewhat
Generic.
well, yeah, we're going to look at it as Christianity, these are the three major religions, and actually they all meet, believe it or not, at the same time.
Even the Hindus believe in the high God.
And it's with the Old Testament God. Okay? They all meet and share. So we all share the same God. These three major religions. So the words that are conducive to that, the words blessing, Spirit, God, Spirit. But you gotta be careful with the Spirit thing. It could be heavily Christian.
Spirit.
It could be heavily Christian. But usually I use blessing God.
What about grace?
Grace, yes, but
That kind of comes with Jesus.
it does. But at the same time, if we can stick blessings in God,
And
you're kind of I've kept the anointing very conducive to their traditions. Unused blessings and into the name of the Holy God. So everybody's happy. So you see? So you can't really, holy is another word. It's conducive. So blessings, holy God. Okay? That's just something to throw out. If you should be requested, they have to request prayer. In prayer, a good thing to do, actually, my first one in ministry was like praying out loud in front of a group of people.
That's all comfortable.
And then, because I specifically went into chaplaincy, it was like, oh, I know what to pray. That's my territory. I know what to pray for. I'm not that good praying in church because that's not my setting. I'm trained in a clinical setting. So I was thinking, you say, well, you're a Christian, you go to church, yeah, but it's a different thing. I'm an introvert, So what I've learned to do with the magic key to prayer is what? I thought I could have, I memorize a little prayer, and I could say it, same prayer over and over, every situation. The key is this, listening what their need is. If you're struggling, how to pray. And is it normal to feel that anxiousness when you pray? Yes, I'd be concerned if you did. Because it's something very sacred and very personal. That's the key to prayer. Any other questions?
It's still art,
It is.
more than skill.
And I think Danny will agree with me on this, not speaking for Danny, but it's a craft that we keep working on.
On my prayer, there are some instances where I go in and since I'm a pastor, they want to pray. And I don't want to. I want to sit back and be the one to judge.
Yeah, exactly.
But you,
You point you out, they find you.
You're like a doctor, you're all over.
And I have
I always say joking, do you really want me today?
like,
I got some issues too, right?
that's right.
But I do it in a joking fashion. It really prepares me for what I need to be saying.
Exactly. And the thing is, a lot of times we get requested to say prayer right then and there. Well, I didn't have time to listen to you. I just go into the room and it's like these things are happening and, so I guide at that point. I kind of guide and navigate and say, hey, I would certainly be happy to pray. But right now, I just want to kind of see what's going on here, how you're feeling. Let me check in with everybody, and that gives them time to, because sometimes, prayer's not magical. People think it's magical. It's sacred. It's not magical. And a lot of times the people are struggling when they're agnostic. They're struggling because sometimes we've set up religion as this magical potion. That if we're good enough, we pray enough, we go to church every Sunday, that everything's going to be good in life. Life is different. Life is different. And prayer, it's not magical. It's sacred. It's special.
There's no quick fix.
There's no quick fix. Never ever has been, never ever will. But let me tell you, faith is the foundation that can help you get through life. If you encounter not a perfect human being. And nobody is. And I embrace that concept every day of my life. But it's faith, and I'm still struggling with my faith. It's okay to struggle. If we didn't, we wouldn't grow. I mean, it's just recently, just in the past 2 years, that I had to come away from the magical thinking that I grew up with in church to say, hey, I've got to be intentional about my faith. It's not the magic wand, poof, poof religion. I've got to be intentional. I've got to know when crisis hits. But I've got to remind myself there is a God that I can bring forth my pain and my brokenness to. And be intentional about my trust in that. That same God got me through all these other crisis situations is not going to let me down. It's going to be faithful. But that doesn't mean that there's going to be this magic wand coming, poof, everything's going to be okay. People are going to live. People are not going to hurt. Because they are. And that's what you're here for. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was perfect timing to take.
Sometimes that's why there's a lot of churches that discriminate against
Okay, y'all ready to get back to it? We've got Luella with us, and she's going to talk to us about different types of violence and violent behaviors, and she's going to give us some information and some resources. And Lynn was affiliated for quite a while with the, went out of my head. Citizens Against Family Violence.
Yeah, Citizens Against Family Violence, yes.
Yeah, my mind just went, there it was. And she's one of our volunteers, and she's going to share with us this morning, and
I'll call you Monday.
Lynn will come now and give her presentation. Okay?
All right, thank you. If I can have your attention now, and I don't mind really if you get out in the middle of what I'm saying, use the facilities or get something to eat, that doesn't bother me in the least. And if you have a question about what I'm saying, just raise your hand right there and we'll stop and take care of that business, because it's too hard to remember and you're just going to listen to it. So I'll make that, that's okay. I would like to know just exactly who's standing in front of me. And so I will give you my name. I will give you the pronunciation of my name first. Waylo. Say it. Waylo. Okay, now I will give you the spelling, which doesn't match. Okay, my first name is Lynn, L-Y-N-N. And my last name is W-E-H-L-A-U. It's a German name. So it doesn't follow the rules of English, of course. So, but it's Waylo. And don't let anybody tell you different. Because you heard it from the horse's mouth. Okay. I was executive director at Citizens Against Family Violence from 1989 to about 2001 or 2, I can't remember, but I retired from there and went on to do different things with my life. So I was there for 14 years and learned a lot about business, learned a lot about victims, learned a lot about batterers, learned a lot about motivation, all those kinds of things that work on the domestic family issues. Now, child abuse, I'm going to start with child abuse. I'm going to go through, this is just to tell you what I'm going to do. Child abuse, and then we'll have a question period if you have one after I get through with that. And then I'm going to do adult abuse, and then we'll have a question period if you have any questions after that you haven't brought up. And then elder abuse. And this is mostly 99, 44, 100% about adult abuse and human being abuse. There is some animal abuse that gets in there, so I'll just speak briefly about that. So, I have a questionnaire for you. So, get out your pencil, get out your paper. You're going to keep this. You don't need to put your name on it. I'm not going to write it down. I'm not going to collect it. This is just for your own personal edification. And if you'll just keep your face up when you get through and put it to the side, then don't talk about it a little bit later. There you go. I need one of those. Okay, so the question is really being asked, not what do you know about this? What was the first question about abused children? I don't want to know what you know. Start on the side that says, please write down your first thoughts. At this point, what you know is great if it's not a myth. And I just want you to put down what your feelings are, how you feel about it. So you do a lot of, callers bring up a lot of emotions in us sometimes. Sometimes we're actively interested, sometimes we're actively listening and bored out of our minds. You know? Sure side that it's time to end the telephone conversation if the caller is not giving you information. So I want to know what's in your heart about this. You need to know what's in your heart. These don't need to be elaborate. Just get the essence out. seconds. Okay, so just do the one page, don't turn it over. Okay, make sure you've got something written on every line, on every category. And then just put it aside, put it under your notebook. We'll look at these a little bit later, but not right now. Oh, you might want to date it. Put a date on it for yourself. Like I said, I'm not collecting that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about out of the three things, well really four, child abuse, teenage abuse, adult abuse, and senior abuse, is child abuse. Now we hear horrific stories on the news if you watch it daily. Almost daily. I remember one to go on vacation with my husband and we were packing up the car and getting ready to go. I mean, and I heard 4 different instances on the news programs about abuse. And I said, let's not watch the TV when we're gone. I mean, you just really, if you've got your ear to it, you can't get away from it. And one of the reasons you can't get away from it is because it's around all the time. You have no idea, if you've never experienced it, what it's like to get up every day, shaken awake, where's my breakfast? Or punch in the belly, where's my breakfast? You know, to be awakened that way, from dead asleep. Children don't go through that, adults go through that when they're abused. But children, you know, fresh little new innocent babies can get some abuse. They say for a mother, the hardest, or a father if they're the caretaker of a child, the hardest thing to do is to raise a child. Because they're not socialized yet, you know. They don't know what to do. I had to laugh when I gave birth to my second child. My husband was there going, shh, shh. The baby doesn't know what shh means, you know. I mean, they don't know. First one didn't know how to suck, you know. I mean, you got to teach them a lot to get them up and grown, you know. So there's a lot to it, and there's a lot to child abuse. And any instant, a person may find the need or the outlet to abuse a child. You know, we'd rather have them kick a tire if they're going to kick something. But they'll kick a child in a heartbeat. They take children and take their little bodies and sit them down in 3 inches of hot, really hot, too hot for baby's water, and they get a pattern on their bodies about what's been in the hot water and what hasn't. You know, I've heard from Roanoke, some parents were disciplining their child. They didn't believe in hitting her, but they poured enough pepper down her throat that she choked to death. There are horrific stories everywhere, and they go on in Martinsville, and Henry County, and Ashland County, and Franklin County. They're not somewhere else. They're right here. While we're sitting right here, somebody's being abused. I don't know whether it's a child, a teenager, an adult, or a senior, but somebody's getting abused. It's so prevalent. It is so prevalent. And children, I've taught school, you'll ask children, okay, everybody put your head down on your desk. Close your eyes and don't peek. I was little ones, I'd say, okay, now how many of you have had thus and such happen? Heard arguing in your house? Little hands would go your mom and dad fight, or whoever's bringing you up, see them fight, their little hands would go up. How many have gotten in the middle of that fight and got hurt? Little hands would go up. Break your heart, because there's so many of them. You know, and then they come to school and things have happened to them and they don't quite get the story straight. When I was student teaching, a little girl named Robin, was down in North Carolina, a little girl named Robin was in school that day, and her mom had come. I was student teaching at that time. Her mom had come and said, Robin got scratched by the dog last night, so there's some marks on it. Okay. Thank you, she's okay, she's taken to the hospital, first aid, whatever, okay? Robin then gets away from her mother goes on about her business, and she's there. She said, did you see where the cat scratched me? So kids will play along with it sometimes. And the reason they do that is they have this innate knowledge that if those people that they live with don't take care of them, nobody will. Nobody will. Nobody will give them a bath, nobody will love them, nobody will feed them. Kids need somebody to love, or they do not thrive. They do not live. There were tests in the United States long before the government got into all our private life that demanded that people take care of their children and that they do so in a manner that helps them to thrive. They had babies in an institution, orphanage, and they were doing a test. Would not be allowed nowadays? No way. But way back then it was. Before all these rules and regs got into going. They had one set of babies that was in the institution, that were fed, bottle propped up, were diapered, and that's it. Those babies died. They died because you can't just feed a baby and change a baby and expect it to live. That's failure to thrive. Another set, control set here, they played with cuckoo, they were in the same environment, but they interacted with them and made happy faces and, held them when they cried and all the things that caretakers do, and they thrived. But the babies who were just fed and diapered, babies can't live without that. So it's no wonder that women and maybe men, I don't know, I have one husband that was afraid of babies, but we kitschy-coo with them and they're so cute. We smile, they smile, and we smile back at them. And just that whole interaction and bonding with people, makes them have a comfortable space. But if you're interacting with a baby and cuckoo, and what a nice word, you can walk, yay, or you can take a piece of trash to the trash can. Even from little, a year old, when they first started toddling around. I mean, if they do that 5 times, take a piece of paper to the trash can, and that's all hooray and all that, and one time, they take a piece of paper to the trash can and you whop them upside the head, they're not going to forget that one time. The ratio is 1 to 20. So you can start to erase behavior like that for 20 times of doing it, to overcome one time of, abuse. But there's not many abusers in any manner, shape, or form that know that or have inside themselves the compassion to do that. the ability to change themselves so that they're not abusing somebody else. Very difficult situation. Police get called all the time. There's statutes in the Virginia Code against all this stuff. I don't have those with me now, but there's plenty in there. You go to the library to research those if you're interested. I'm going to make, just so you know, I'm going to make all the materials that I used this morning available in the side drawer at contact where all your, lots of your information is on the side. So if you miss a statistic or whatever, you're not going to suffer for the lack of knowledge. Okay, there's even sexual abuse of babies. Went to a Parents International Conference in Norfolk when we were starting the sexual assault program again at CAFE. And there was a room would have been filled. There's one man over in the corner. So I'm talking to all women, the rest of them's all women, you know. So I said to the gal that was with me, I said, I wonder what he's doing here. She said, oh, he's a batterer. And they brought this guy who had finally realized what he had done was so bad, had been in prison for it, came out, what do they call that when they're, what is it?
Rehabilitated?
Rehabilitated, there you go. It's Saturday. Rehabilitated and wanted to help people to understand what motivates people like that. It was a male, 95% of abusers, whether it's child abuse, teenage abuse, adult abuse, or senior abuse, are males. So that means when you answer the phone, there's talk about abuse from a man, and they usually don't call. You won't get many of these. That they've been the perpetrator. They may want some information, maybe for searching out if their wife has left them and how to get a hold of the batterers. I mean, the shelter in that town or something, they may be working you for that. But 95% of the time, it's male against female. That 5% counts though. There are little boys that get abused by their mothers. So don't just think that never happens. There are little boys that get sexually abused. Don't think that that never happens. It happens. It happens here. Because it's not what you look like or what your gender is, it's how you're brought up. If you batter and batter and batter somebody from when they're in a dresser drawer because you can't afford a cradle, to when they're 18 if they can stand it that long, or 16 and run away, or whatever, that abuse is going to color their whole lives. It takes a lot of work to overcome trust issues, to battle your own sexuality and your own growing up and the feelings you have and not having a way to express those openly because you get knocked upside the head. So there's all kinds of impacts that that abuse has over the years. Bullies in school, all those little bullies are not going to get better and make nice when they're out in the world. Those people that cut in front of you, give you the finger when you pull in front of them in the car, road rage, I mean, it just balloons out all the ways that people try to express their emotions when they haven't had the opportunity to do that in a secure family. A lot of societal ills you can trace back to that.
And the trauma may have been so bad that it gets suppressed for the first 4 years. And the choice of when it
And
goes,
I'd like to say more about that.
well, I had an abusive situation myself, which somebody was stalking me. And that was in 99 and 2000. And brought me here. And the things that happened then, it was 2006 when I was addressing some of, not that issue, but it was with the doctor. And it was prompted that it came out. I was luckily in the right setting, with all different kinds of doctors, but that can be just horrifying for a victim. They can just lose it all over again and not know what it's doing, because it's very traumatic.
When they show the pictures on the TV about conditions like that, about child abuse conditions and all that, you can believe that they don't show you the really bad ones.
Yeah.
They don't show you the really bad ones. The ones with the blood, gore, guts, and stuff. They don't show you that. They won't. They use their discretion and keep that off the TV. But if you see something that's bad on the TV about abuse, you can probably, just as a baseline, figure it's twice as bad as you see.
We can think about the young lady that just discovered. She was captive for 18 years.
Now that is so exceptional, and that's why it made the news. But all this child missing stuff was a sexual predator whose wife couldn't bear children, so he wanted children. Not that he played with them, you understand. He just fathered them. So that was statutory rape because it was conducted before the age of consent. And Virginia law starts having some rules and regs and laws about the ability to give permission at age 13. And there's a lot of laws between that 13 and 18 when minors, reach their majority. So I'd have to look that up because they're very complicated. But it's an approach to budding sexuality in young people and sexual predators and what they can do and can't do.
You've got people that have a control issue too, because this situation that happened to me in 99, 2000, and on, that I have still, this year, have gotten phone calls or gotten contact from the same person that I have had nothing to do with all these years. And you just can't, but it's really scary to think, oh, this person broke out of jail and the police can't pick them up yet because it hasn't been 24 hours, and that Missouri notified you, you're in Virginia, you take the police to where that person's gonna be that you think. And they even see him there, but they can't pick him up until it comes over the wire. And then the next day you find 76 cigarette butts all the way around your house from that person being there. And then he gets put back in jail, and then the next time escapes again, and from Missouri, and comes all the way back here, and fortunately his aunt called, and I called Manhattan County Sheriff's, and he was hiding in the bushes to kidnap my daughter at private school. Now that's beyond just battery, that's somebody with a sick mind that continually does things like that, and his only aim to get out of jail is to first come where you are. And the only contact you ever had with this person before was zilch. They saw you on ESPN 300 times that year or something. And it's just insane. That kind of,
You just really don't know people. You have wives out there saying, I never knew my husband could be like that.
and you don't believe that that could really happen to you, that people are that caught up in stalking you.
I'll engage in more detail about that when we get to the adult abuse. But for the child abuse, the kids
They're helpless.
maybe don't even know they're being abused, they just know it hurts. You know, I mean, they're not that sophisticated when they're little. You know, my
Until they
2-year-old,
get older and then they're, oh.
yeah, the grandchild, you know, sometimes she doesn't like it, she cries, you know, whether it's abuse or a stubbed toe, you know, they know it doesn't feel good, it hurts. And so that's what motivates them. And so one thing we can do as parents and grandparents is to tell our children, if you hurt, tell mommy. If you hurt, tell daddy. If you hurt, tell grandma. If something's going on and you don't like it, tell mommy. You know, you're going to get a lot of frivolous baby babble, but you may find out something. And that's okay. You know, the babble will come and go, and you'll wish one day you listened to it if it's the bad stuff. So, because they're powerless. You know, children, you can just pick them up and take them places, and we've all done that with our children. You know, and so it's just especially difficult for them if they know something's not right. And some of us before they even have verbal skills. I was told by a lady in my church that her little baby could stand at the coffee table and just, you know, and no words, didn't have any words. But just the tension in the family and what's going on, so they express it. You know babies, they express themselves. So they don't make any bones about it. They get socialized just along with the rest of us. Well, if they hurt themselves, they're not going to cry in church, or they're not going to, you know, yell out in the grocery store. Or, you know, I mean, we just get where all these layers of socialization cover up what our true feelings are. But that doesn't happen to kids right off. They just, what they are is what they are, you know. So, there's sexual abuse of children. This guy from Parents International said that he started fantasizing about having vaginal intercourse with his daughter when she was 6 months old. And that ideation, you know, he was just waiting for her to get big enough where he wouldn't absolutely just tear her up on penetration. Usually 3-year-olds cannot, will have, that's about the lowest age you could go, good 3, before it does just tear them up, and sometimes it kills the babies. It's just, they're not made for that yet, you know, they're not grown enough for that. So, because abusers can have an idea in their mind for years.
What's it called when somebody makes their child look like they're sick all the time? There's a name.
Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
Yeah. What kind of syndrome is Munchausen? But does that happen?
Well, of course it happens, the disease has got a name. I've never run into that around here, but that doesn't mean you won't hear about one tomorrow.
There could be a lot, it could
I
be
mean,
a
you
lot.
know, Burnsville,
Nothing
Henry
severe,
County is a
suffocating.
big enough population where we get rare diseases. And you know, there's enough people here that you would have.
I watched a video of somebody in
But
hospital.
usually the kids don't know
But it's not.
that they're not sick. You know, mommy or daddy's giving them something that makes them not feel good, and so they think they're sick. A lot of complicated issues when you get into abuse. A lot complicated. And this 18-year trapping of this 11-year-old girl here lately that's out, can you imagine, can you even begin to imagine what it's like to go to no more schooling? She was 11, she was in school, she was waiting for a school bus, and then no more education, So she just walks around now with an 11-year-old intellect about the knowledge would have, not like a 30-year-old.
I don't think she'll never
No.
be able to.
Now, they do a lot of work with people, a lot of counseling. Those children, they'll all be lucky if they get out and don't perpetrate on somebody else. Because that's how you make perpetrators. You wonder why men get ideation at waiting for 6 months for their child to get older. They probably had something done to them in 6 months, or as a young child. And batterers tend to repeat what's been done to them if they're abusing children. So if they were deprived of food, then that's what they do to their child. You would think they'd be more compassionate and say, gosh, I was so hungry, I'm going to feed my child. But if they got that abusive kind of mentality, they moan going, they do the same thing.
Is
The
it
same thing that was done to them.
signs of their anger?
So, yeah, could be that, sure.
They don't know.
You can almost tell by the abuse the child gets, by the physical evidence, what abuse was perpetrated against the abuser. Because they tend to repeat the abuse that they suffered. Tend to repeat it. Kids, when they get up, probably around 8, 11, something like that, they reach the age of reason at 6 or 7, just depending on the child. That's why basically school starts when they're 6 or 7. And kindergarten stuff is a new addition, even though it's 100 years old, you know. And lots of caregivers have done education with their children long before they ever went to a one-room schoolhouse. But it takes a lot to kill a child, and people come pretty close sometimes. And we're supposed to be civilized. And people ask, well, it seems to be more about battering. I always hear more and more about battering. Is it getting more prevalent? The answer is yes. It also has to do with if you're a mom and dad, you have one child, you abuse that child, so he's an abuser, if it's a male child, then if he has a son, a daughter, or 2 or 3 or more children, he may batter them. If he's in the battering mode, he may grow up and batter those children. I've had more women than one come to me at the shelter and say, here I thought I was protecting my boy from my batterer and teaching him that family matters and keeping him with me and not, leaving the batterer and all that. And then the son turns around in the teenage years and starts battering the mother. A lot of teenage lip, comes into that. But then there's some people that really do batter their mothers as teenagers. Because that's what they learned. How does daddy treat mom? Well, I guess that's the way you treat women. And on it goes. You wonder why women don't like to have to call anybody a male chauvinist pig. But it doesn't come lightly. Sometimes these are the little boys that we raised. And it all depends on what we do, what they do. Of course, some of it's turned around, but the older they get, the more it is what we do, they do. And so if he sees a woman putting up with abuse, mother's a woman, there you go. Okay, so there's battering of children, there's physical violence against them, there's the destruction of property and pets, there's emotional abuse, and you don't very often get any financial abuse or anything like that with the kids, but it could be, manipulative allowance or promise it and then deduct for when they don't pick up their shoes in the living room. And not that any of those are bad techniques, but when it becomes abusive, that crosses the line. So I think an awful lot of the things that parents do are okay. It's okay to put the baby down in tumbling warm water. It's when you take it to the extreme and make it hot water, that's not going to go. It's okay to call your child in when you think it's dark. You know, it's not okay to call them in at 11 at night. And I have had physicians call me, because my son was a good friend of a physician's child, and say, "Where's my son? Do you know where he is?" 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, you should have been worried about it before this, but you know, you're talking to a physician. Teach him that? You know, I don't know. So it's all, you can't just categorize people. You cannot just categorize people, because you don't know. You don't know. Okay, let's talk about any questions that you have about child abuse. Your procedure on the phone is to talk with the child, if they're the one who's calling, to ask them questions that will help them process things. Are you hurt? You're gonna have access to this in the phone. Where are you hurt? Do you want me to send help? What is your address? Where is the attacker? Or use a word that's age appropriate for the child. Where's the person that hurt you? Yeah. Is there someplace safe you can go? Because often they're in a closed room, maybe they didn't have the presence of mind to lock it or know how to lock it. They're just on the phone and the batter's 15 feet away listening to the TV. Is there someplace you can go? Is there anybody else there with you besides the batterer? Because that tends to keep people from battering if they've got a witness, unless they're also battering what would be the witness. You know, they get women oftentimes for failure to protect. But you know, if the batterer's beating you up every other day, and every third day he's battering your child, and you know if you interfere, you're going to get it even worse the next day, then there is a tendency in some people not to protect the child. And you can see why, you know. How many times can you get kicked in the head? You know? I mean, it just comes to a physical limit to things.
If a child calls in,
Pardon me?
if a child calls in and they have been battered, or say they have,
And they may not know that name.
right, abused,
They may not know that name.
will tell you they've been hurt.
Yeah.
When you get off the phone, do you just drop it and leave it for that child to continue, or do you report this to social services? What does Contact do?
Yeah. Well, the process that Contact has been using is to try to get the child to call the number. I have had a couple in 22 years, I think only 2 calls from children saying they were abused. And each one of those, I'm not sure what word they used, they were abused. And each one of those, I reported it to the front office, the Contact office.
Because it seems like to me, if we got the call and we just, once we hung up from the call, we dropped it. That's just, to me, that's bad.
Yeah.
Because we're.
That's why
continue
there's a
on.
process of letting the office know. First of all, you would try to get the child of any age knows how to use the telephone. Any more dogs will call 911. You know, so you try to get that skill into your children, but if they don't have that skill, and they just barely got the number for Contact and can't handle any more numbers, then you're kind of stuck and you let the front office know. But if you can give them the numbers, which will be in the literature of the office, to call themselves,
It's
that's
better
even
than
better.
they call.
Yes, it's better than they call. And you may get a follow-up telephone call from the parents who have realized that the child has done something that they use the phone to do it, that they want to know what's going on, and so they'll pick up the phone and hit the redial. And you will be saved, as if it were anybody, because you never know who's calling. This is contact, may I help you? And they'll say, what is this? Because it certainly isn't expected what the child will do. This is contact. What do you do? Well, we listen to people. I'm trying to help them with the decisions that they're making. And we'll listen to people who just need to talk. And help with other matters, agency matters in the community.
It's important.
Did Brian call you? As far as giving information to that parent, maybe Brian, you talked to, just hung up the phone and the parent got him and redialed right away. Did Brian call you? And your answer to that is a stock answer. I have not, I'll write lie to the parents. I have not talked to the child tonight. Well, how'd they get this number? Ma'am, I don't know. Because what they're trying to find out is what Brian told you, that they named names, gave an address. And he's going to get beaten again. If you tell him the truth and say, yeah, Brian called, he said you hit him with a 2x4. So you just outright lie. I mean, you can say you're directing differently or something like that, but what you do is you don't ever want to put that child in any more danger of any sort. So how you happen to connect it to the phone in their house, you have no idea. You're supremely stupid at that point. I don't know, they're a phone company, you know, say anything, but you don't know how they are connected, regardless of what you talk to Brian about. You can also say when Brian's on the phone, I can hear that you're really upset. That's okay. I'm here to help you. Can you take a few deep breaths with me and do that on the phone with him, try to get the child to relax? Sometimes I've not been able to, on one occasion, tell that it was a child. Well, if they're teenagers, they'll talk like an adult, won't use any of their lingo, you know, and then come to the end of the conversation and say, well, I'm 13 and that was my dad that did so and so. And you're in total shock. So you can't just put down parents the whole time. You can't just put down kids. Kids never invited. They may be ornery. They may be difficult. They may have something going on that you don't know about. My kids used to make me so mad at night. And I wake up the next morning and hear they're sick. I think, oh, God, what did I do? You know, I mean, you never know what's going on with that child. So give them every liberty. And be just staunch with the parents if you get them on the phone. Because you know nothing whatsoever. It's okay to cry. Some callers I don't want to listen to cry on the phone. My kids is okay. Okay. If you get one engaging conversation that's maybe a teenage, you can say, how has this been changing your life? How is this affecting you? Are you able to go to school and have a clear head? Well, I had a mother one time, and I was at the shelter for battered women, but we found out that she would get her child up every day and actually take a bar of soap, which would happen to me, why I don't curse very often, and the mother would do a bar of soap in her mouth. She said she could taste that soap all day long. And you're going to teach her Spanish? You're going to teach her Latin? She's going to worry about where some of the lakes are in Europe? I'm sorry. It ain't happening. And you wonder why kids don't learn in school? Well, there's 100 different reasons, and abuse is one of them. Abuse is one of them. Okay, any more about child abuse? side of this later. But look at the back side of this sheet. It's got myths about child sexual abuse on it. I think that's all. Oh, I didn't keep one for myself. I'm bad for that. Excuse me, okay? All right. Well, now, the first capitalized myth, child provokes sexual assault by their behavior because they can be seductive. Now, I'll tell you, little 3-year-olds can be cute and the girls can be very coquettish, but they don't have the knowledge about sex whatsoever. So when they act that way in their daddies or their uncles or whatever, they're not being sexual. If somebody thinks that, it's within the adult or the older teenager or whatever that's thinking that. It's not the child emanating that kind of thing. They don't know how to be sexual. They don't know anything about it. And God bless their innocence. So, another myth. The child can be taught safety about sexual assault. You can teach them some things. You know that looking for the puppies in the park and don't talk to all about that? Those same set of children, that same experiment, they had another person come up to them and ask if they could help find their kitty. Well, yeah, they can do that. They're not supposed to do dogs. The kitties they can do, so they're not making fine distinctions. They are making fine distinctions about that. So you need to be careful when you're teaching your grandchildren and your children about this. And grandparents, don't be afraid to be a source of knowledge for those children that you love so dearly. Don't be afraid to do that. You can do it with mom and daddy right there, or, you know, they went on a date, you had them for a little bit. Teach them something. Whether this is a nose or whatever, you be a teacher for those kids. You want to make them safe. Teach them how to dial 911. Myth, if you talk openly about sexual assault with children, it will traumatize them. No, ma'am. There's a time and there's a place for everything. And kids need to know that. Kids need to know that. So, they're at the wrong age for sex. They need to know that. They need to know what an abuser or a sexual assaulter might say to them. Teach them about how they can get groomed. Teach them about anything you know to be a fact about sexual assault. But use their words. You know, don't use adult words for it. It's okay to use adult words if you define it for the child first. Assault is like when somebody rushes at somebody else and beats them up and hurts them. And sex is about making babies and enjoying that part of your life. And teach them what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, so they inside themselves can think it out when they run into a situation. Is this appropriate? Because if they can't make the decision, who's going to make it for them? So saying no is good for them.
Don't sexual or predators prey on a child's inherent training to trust adults and to start doubting what they think they know if somebody's talking to them authoritative. You know,
Kids are short. Perpetrators are not so short usually. You know, so kids have a respect. The teacher tells them what to do and they got to do it. Parents tells them what to do and they got to do it. Or so we think. You know, so just it's not any adult. Don't let just any adult change your life. How young that is now. Certain people can change your diaper. It's Grandma W and Grandma L and Mommy and Daddy and your preschool teacher, Suzanne. Nobody else should be getting in your diaper. Teach them the things that you want them to know. Be kind, be loving, make a game of it if, you know, whatever. But get that knowledge inside the kids. And they know so much more than they let on. And you know that. Your kids have come up with stuff that's 10 years beyond their years sometimes. Where did they learn that? You know? Woo! Okay, teenage abuse. It's kind of a different animal about teenage abuse. I'm going to do the papers for that. And I'm going to give you, and it looks like the operator, me, wasn't good at the 3-hole punch. So you got 2 holes punched in these.
That's a dead giveaway, you used to be a teacher.
Pardon?
I said, that's a dead giveaway, you used to be a teacher, that posted note on the arm.
I think I had posted notes when I was teaching. That ages me considerably, don't it? Okay, so we're going to go through some of the things in dating. Now, these are kids that probably will not call the helpline because they more go to their friends than they do adults. But you may get a few of these. I've never had one, but you may get a few of them. So, the basics about battery, whether it's children or elderly, is the power that you have over somebody. Adults have power over kids because we can lift them up and carry them up wherever we want to go with them. But they are not big enough, strong enough, intelligent enough, or clever enough to get away from us. Well, that's just the bottom line. So they're stuck. Teenagers, well, I got a son that's 6'5", reached out in high school. Great basketball player, but you know, I talk to him like this now. And my shorter son is 6'2", and I talk to him like this. You know, so teenagers can be big. Teenage girls, with all societal emphasis on trim little figures and being attractive to boys and doing what the boys want and all that, is surely a symptom of not seeing themselves as worthy in their own right, regardless of who they attach themselves to. So we need to impress upon that, where they're not so dependent on figuring out what the boys like so they can be that way. But that's what's going on, and it's going to be hard to change. So that control over people, that power over people. When you get peers in high school, I mean, it's something to have a boyfriend. Somebody wants you, somebody wants to kiss you, somebody wants to hold you. Isn't that great? It's just putting limits on that that the teenagers don't have the judgment to do. So, in the dating scene with these abused kids, sometimes regular kids, bullies, or maybe regular kids, get into the high school scene, the girls usually are much smaller than the boys. I mean, the main cheerleader dating a football star is a cliche, and you see the difference. In the class where I graduated in high school, which is a class of 1,000, my class, the cheerleader was about so tall, the football player was about so tall, and, you know, if he wanted to beat her up, now, how's she going to win? She better know. So, martial arts or something. And most girls don't know that. It would be smart to start our girls with that, so that they didn't feel powerless, even though they were smaller. But, so it's power and control over people. That's the same in adult abuse, that's the same in elder abuse. And you can read these different things around the wheel. This is taken from another power and control that you'll get in a few minutes. But,
Yeah, I was gonna say, this isn't strictly just for teenagers. I mean,
but yeah, this one
adults
is
that
just
go.
for teenagers.
Okay.
There's an adult version that started first, and this was taken from that.
Yeah.
So
So I was
you-
saying, I know
yeah.
adults that have.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. And this is taken from that adult power control. So read those, and if you have any questions, ask them now.
I guess since it's a circle, it must, each thing must have
Excuse
been, since it's a circle, it looks like all these different pies all come together. You can jump from one piece of pie to the other
Right.
pretty easily. In fact, wouldn't it be fair to say that not any battering situation has just one slice of this pie?
Right. There's multiple,
There usually isn't just one slice of pie,
like
right?
2 or 3.
Nope, not one slice.
And a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, you know, guys may throw away their girlfriend's telephone, cell phone, if they get a call and they're speaking to their boyfriend.
I worked at Vermont about a year and a half ago, and they work with children.
The housing development?
No, up in Roanoke,
Oh,
and
what is it?
Vermont is a school for children to act socially with the other kids in the middle school. And I was a caretaker of one of the children.
Caretaker, yeah.
And I had to be with him the whole time in class and be sure that he got his assignments and related to the parents and all that. And he had a different type of problem with those young girl parents. She was about 14, 15 years old. She was pregnant. And her mother let her do whatever she wanted to do because there was a lot of sexual abuse in the home. You can tell that.
So, sexual abuse in the home and no control over the girl.
So she was already pregnant with her boyfriend. At 16, she moved in with her boyfriend. And just about 6 months ago, she was on TV for killing because.
Killing the boyfriend?
Yeah, she stabbed him several times. And she was run out serving her time in prison because of jealousy and because of other people and their again. So this
see,
fits
it's-
all in this pile right here.
Yeah.
As soon as I see this, that's who
Why
came.
would it work with it?
I knew this right here is this young lady.
So you see, it just impacts, and it's not all men. I mean, I'm really fond of guys. I have 2 little grandchildren, and have 2 husbands, and a baby, and my dad, and 2 grandfathers. You know, I mean, I like it. There's more girls in my family than there are boys in the long run, so we really treasure our boys. But I brought them up to be just as moral as I would a girl. I didn't have any girls, but I brought them up just that way.
I was also said this young lady was abused by another's boyfriends.
And it works its way out.
And just.
And she'll be abused in prison.
Yeah.
And she probably will abuse in prison. Okay, this, on the sexual abuse, down here in the wheel, continue sexual advances after being told no. Some men really females. I dated a gentleman one time whose mother had died giving birth to him, and I never knew anybody that respected females more than he did. There are some men who do not respect females. They think, they're the power in the house. They can do anything they want to. Your emotions as a girlfriend are, who cares? They want what they want, whatever that is, to go to a movie, take a chance on not having enough gas, and they just make all the decisions. Regardless of what your good sense tells you as a female. Be wary of those men. Because they're not paying attention to any input. They just know what I know. Just don't confuse it with facts. Their mind's made up. They are Superman. And your little flippings around don't make a hill of beans. I would do a 180 from somebody like that. But there are those teenagers that feel that way, based on nothing. And that's the problem. So again, we need to educate our children and our grandchildren about what's fair with dealing with other people and getting all of that done. Okay, now for the power and control wheel. And this is what the teenage power and control wheel was taken from. But I want to look at the backside first, the equality piece. Look at the backside first, and do a little bit of reading. Okay, a little more. There's a reason why it's on the back of the power control wheel, because it's the opposite of it. That's why it's set up that way. The equality wheel, non-violence. So when you're negotiating with somebody, you do it out of respect, and you do negotiate. It's not just somebody says, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Non-threatening behavior, you don't stand over people and tell them, we're going to do what I'm going to do tonight, and I don't want to hear any lip from you, buddy.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so it's not on a quality basis, it's not on a basis of respect. Trust and support each other. You keep those little secrets that are supposed to be kept. You share the responsibility for things. That means both people's names are on the mortgage. You decide on parenting, and then you follow through with that, and believe me, it needs refining all the time. Because kids are throwing you different problems all the time. You're honest with your partner. And I mean just not cursory honesty. But you know how women kind of see things coming a little further down the road than the guys do? You need to tell them that when it's way down there. Say, I see that we're spending too much money. It's getting hard to balance the check. Do you see that? No, I think we're doing just fine. Let's write it on the calendar. And that's a good ploy to take. Write it on the calendar the day you told them. If you don't think that works, try it. Try it. Or I used to have to do to my late husband. He died about 11 years ago. He was a procrastinator. He's also a past president of Contact. But he was kind of a procrastinator. And I finally, after I got to know him and knew how to work him a little bit, I'd say, when do you want to schedule, cleaning out the garage? Next week. Okay, I write it down. This is the week that Hank will schedule cleaning out the garage. Then the next week, true to form, give them as long as I could as possible. Okay, you said you would schedule the garage cleaning this week. It's Saturday. When are we going to clean the garage? 2 weeks from now. Okay, on Saturday? Okay. Right. I mean, you can't be in a rush about something, especially with procrastinating. But you can make actions that get things done. Maybe not in your time, but at least done. And sometimes that's the issue. Yeah. So that's the equality rule. Treating people with respect. I respected that he didn't like to do things right away. And that's why I approached the problem garage in a respectful manner for him that fit his style. And males are expected to do this too. Okay, so turn the page over. Power and control. Keep it up. These would be things that perpetrators do against victims and there's a bunch of them. And I can give you 2 or 3 examples off the top of my head. Every one of them that goes on in Martinsville and Henry County. Some experience somebody told me. My boyfriend says he's going to take my long hair and pin it up over the door frame so the blood will drip on the children. And some gruesome things. And we used to talk about ideation and following through on that. I mean, we'd all be safer in our beds in the fetal position, you know? You take a risk getting up out of bed. So this is one of them. Okay? Isolation that is so prevalent with abuse of women. You know, there's a guy that put a second lock on the doors of his trailer so his wife couldn't get out. So he'd go to work in the morning and turn the lock and she couldn't get out. His trailer. What? You're emotional now? Just because it's the change of life? Forget that. There is no such thing as that. But it minimize things that are important to somebody else. Using the male privilege.
Say male privilege is big around here.
Yeah. Hey, baby. Did you get me and Joe a beer while we're watching? You know, as if they're not physically able to get up off the couch and walk to the refrigerator for the beer you bought. You know, you would never. I've been married twice. I would never lay back and say, hey, why don't you get me a beer? I would never think to do that. And then think about it when they say it. And then when you start doing it, I can get at my mother sometimes. This is before she turned 92. She would say, you don't call me very much. I said, is your finger broke? I don't call her a lot. But if it's not the night she wants to be called, you don't call me. Your finger broke? I mean, you know, it's responsibility going both ways. And older people many times have different ideas about that than younger people. So factor that in. Economic abuse. I know a guy in my church that set up the whole housing finance for his wife and his kids and he on a computer, budget and everything. It was a long time ago. 15 years ago or more. She didn't know how to use the computer. She couldn't print the checks out. She needed grocery money. She had to wait for him to hand her the money. And he would say, here's $50, you better come back with change. And it'd be, you know, counting up the change in the receipt. There's all kinds of very sophisticated ways to abuse somebody. And who would know? Who would know that? You would just think they did it together. No. Threats about stuff.
Lynn?
Okay. So, for adult abuse, The big thing is how that makes the victim feel. And you'll get the victims on the phone. Refer them to CAFE, they have counselors over there, case managers over there that will help them with that. Refer them to anybody in the phone book, you know, in that regard. Talk to them. Don't necessarily make out like it's a male battler against them. It may be a lesbian situation, and they battle. So keep your language open. They're saying, blah, 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 I got battered. What does your partner think about that? Not your husband. I had one executive director of Contact tell me, how come you always get the abuse telephone calls? Ding-a-ling. I didn't get all the abuse telephone calls. I just didn't turn them off when we started talking about them. So it's your responsibility as the telephone worker to use the language that's inviting, that's comfortable for the caller, where you can get down to the problem. Okay? That's your responsibility if you're sitting on the phone. Okay. And I got one more thing, and that is elder abuse. I can find it. Just think about these things. What is elder abuse? How can I tell if somebody is being abusive? What are the warning signs of elder abuse? Who are the abusers? In this time, it's about equal men and women who are the abusers. Is everyone at risk? What is elder self-neglect? Like my mom not checking her glucose level, you know, herself, which is her responsibility. What should I do? Who should I call? Who do I tell? Am I going to get in trouble? Okay. The bottom line on elder abuse is that elders don't like to be abused any more than anybody else. They may not have their right minds all the time because of disease or age, just getting old or whatever. But you need to, again, be respectful of them. Be respectful. I got a hand down here. There it is. Be respectful of them. Ask their opinion. Don't take their money. That's often a piece of elder abuse, is the money issue.
Because they follow you, they
Pardon me?
easily convinced to, you know,
Totally
process.
not, yes. I've often thought to myself, if I get married again, first of all, I'm too old to get married again. And second of all, if I get married again, is my husband going to direct my investments? And the answer is no. You know, sons are notorious for doing investments for their people. Not my two sons. No, no, no. So here's just where I should not break the three-hole punch. I do have a college degree, though. I could not break the three-hole punch. Again, listed here in the center is the types of abuse and some extra materials about that. Any questions? Comments? Complaints?
In general, when you are talking to a caller on the phone, and you have determined whatever their age, if there's some type of abuse going on, what is the protocol then? Do you direct them to an agency or?
Sometimes people don't realize they're being abused. And so it's that whole issue of, you know, say if you're talking from a teenager to an elder, if you're thinking that somehow, you need to ask your questions about respect. Are they respecting you when they give you a bath? Are they respecting you when your social security check comes in? Are they respecting your wishes when you want to go see somebody, you want to go sit outside, or whatever? And caretakers can come up with a bunch of reasons why that's not good, but, you know, so you would help people understand that they're being abused. So you would say, if they're not giving you any say-so over your social security check, that doesn't sound reasonable to me. How does it sound to you? Kind of reflect it back to them. For above the child age.
We can suggest, maybe ask them, would they like to talk to someone else? We could give them some phone numbers if they have more questions. Could put it that way, and we could refer them over to the Council on Aging or Citizens Against Family Violence. We don't have to say to them, you're being abused, my goodness, you better do something. We can say, sounds like maybe you need to talk to somebody. How about if I give you some phone calls, some phone numbers?
The bottom line for elder abuse is Department of Social Services, the local Department of Social Services. So for most of the calls, it would be Henry Martin's Department of Social Services. The Patrick and Frank don't each one of those, because they have a person hired for elder abuse. It's a separate kind of category. So we have lots of wonderful resources up there. Phone numbers for everybody but me, I hope. But lots of people with lots of expertise about lots of things. So when you go in and you play somebody on the phone, if you have a question about something, ask them. They may know. Just hold it with a grain of salt, because it may be misinformation. And it might, so I would ask again. There's all kinds of things. You know, it's like playing telephone. Some things get kind of misconstrued and stuff. But ask again. Or Harry's got a pocket on his door, write him out. Harry, what's the right way to do blah, 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 blah? You know, Linda B. And you'll get a reply from Harry. You know, and then it's from the horse's mouth. Then it's yours to decide if the horse is going north or south. Yes?
So what do you do now?
I'm retired. Yeah. Yeah. My last real employment with the CAFA, about 6 or 7 years ago, I can't remember. I do some
Well, it's not like you just got so much information, you know.
Well, you know, when you work in an agency, you learn a lot about other agencies, because you have to know that for your job. I learned a lot about grant writing, a lot about personal relationships, a lot about fundraising. You know, you just have to do your job well. So that's probably the reason. Okay, any questions, concerns, comments, complaints? That's it.
Well done.
Thank you.